In a world where everyone uses magic in their daily lives, we see a ridiculously strong boy in the forest. His name is Mash, and his existence defies the natural order in the world. He lives in a hut with his father Burndead, where they enjoy their lives in isolation. When Mash goes home, he ends up breaking the door, forgetting if it was a push or pull. This makes Burndead upset, but Mash apologizes, promising to fix it. He tries to put it back, but he just pounds it against the door frame, making the damage even worse. After that, they have tea together, and we learn that Mash is different from other people, because he can't use magic, so Burndead has been trying to make his body stronger to make up for it, but Mash doesn't know this, so he continues to wonder why his training is purely physical. Burndead heads out, but warns Mash not to venture into the city while he's gone, but after his father leaves, he immediately runs to the city wearing a cloak, wanting to try a limited edition cream puff from the bakery. He walks around the city, where he sees the people using magic, but he thinks that it's nothing special, because the things they do with magic can also be done with their hands. Mash reaches the bakery and becomes excited, ordering some cream puffs. But as he pays, all the coins are bent, because he had clenched his fist when he had gotten too excited. But the baker thinks that the coins shouldn't be bent so easily. Mash fixes them up, straightening them to their original form, and the baker freaks out. After a while, Mash gets his food, but the winds blow, revealing his face to the public, and everyone is surprised because he doesn't have any marks on his face. Meanwhile, we see an officer named Brad at the police station. He reads a newspaper about this year's Divine Visionary, a title given to the top student of the Magic Academy, which also comes with a number of promotions and rewards. The phone rings, and he is informed about a man walking around the city with no mark on his face. As Mash walks around the streets, he wonders why everyone is staring at him, but he just eats his cream puffs. He bumps into a drunk officer named Terry, messing up his uniform with some of the cream and making him upset. Terry knocks the food off his hands as he continues to run his mouth. Mash rips off the officer's uniform, but he actually has good intentions, telling Terry that he will wash it up for him. At that moment, Brad arrives, asking Terry why he's naked. He looks at Mash, thinking that he is the man mentioned in the report, so he approaches him, but Burndead arrives, grabbing his son and running away, while Brad summons a magical bird to go after them. When they return home, Burndead scolds his son for going into the city despite his warning. Burndead forgives him in the end, but he punishes Mash by making him repeat his workout routine. As Mash leaves the house to train, Burndead thinks that Mash is actually a good kid, and he can't blame him for wanting to go to the city, because he has spent his entire life hiding in the forest. Burndead thinks about how to deal with the police when he sees Brad's bird watching him from his window. Brad suddenly arrives with his men, asking Burndead where his son is. We see Mash training in the woods, lifting the weight like it's nothing, and completing his workout in 5 minutes. He heads back home, but just as he is about to open the door, he hears Brad as he explains that magic has flourished, because they have gotten rid of all the people who can't use magic, calling it a necessary sacrifice for a better world. Brad pushes Burndead, telling him that sheltering the unmarked is a serious offense, but Burndead refuses to tell them about his son's whereabouts. In a flashback, we learn that Burndead has always been treated as a failure in everything that he does. This goes on until adulthood, and he thinks about taking his own life, when suddenly, he hears a baby Mash crying. He realizes that the baby was abandoned because he had no mark, thinking that they are both unwanted by society, so he decides to raise the baby as his own. Back in the present, Burndead screams at Mash to run, so Brad starts beating him up, but just as he is about to finish him off, Mash bursts through the door, hitting one of the officers, and blowing him away. Terry goes to him, but Mash rips his uniform off, slapping him repeatedly until he falls to the ground. Mash reveals that he didn't run because Burndead is his only family, but Brad laughs at him, thinking that he has no chance because he can't use magic. He attacks Mash with the spell he used to drive away a dragon, but Mash easily deflects it with one hand, and Brad can't believe his eyes. He follows up with an even stronger spell, but Mash slaps it away, causing it to explode elsewhere. Terry continues to attack Mash with his magic, while Mash deflects his attacks, and it looks like he's having fun. He takes his father's wand, while Brad defends himself with a barrier, thinking Mash is about to use magic, but Mash throws the wand at Brad, breaking his barrier and causing him to fall to his knees. Mash threatens to kill him the next time he threatens his family, but Brad proposes a deal where Mash will enroll in a magic academy and become a divine visionary so that society will accept him, saying that he will back Mash up because he wants the reward that comes with it. He claims that if they don't accept his deal, they'll be hunted down for the rest of their lives, so Mash agrees to the deal. Mash goes to the prestigious Easton Magic Academy with a fake mark on his face, where he will take the entrance exam that is notoriously difficult, with a passing rate of less than 3%. A man named Lucci looks at the applicants gathered on the field, recognizing some of their faces, when he suddenly hears a loud noise, and he sees Mash lifting weights like it's paper, making him confused because that is not the place for him to work out. Lucci calms himself down, looking at the field again, where he sees Mash reading a fitness book while doing the invisible chair, and he even notices Brad and Bernadette behind him, who are trying to keep an eye on Mash. Lucci appears with style, announcing that he will oversee the exam. The students are stunned, because they recognize him as an extremely gifted mage. Lucci is flattered, but Mash comments on his unnecessarily flashy entrance, making Lucci want to fail him. Lucci announces that the first exam is about to begin, ordering everyone to take a seat, as he uses a spell to prepare the venue for everyone, making everyone amazed. But Mash is not impressed, telling him that he could have just taken them to a room where everything was already prepared, and this makes Lucci hate him even more. The exam begins, as the applicants check their papers, but the questions move around the page, making it difficult to read. We learn that Lucci enchanted the papers with magic, so they need to dispel the magic to pass the test. Brad and Bernadette think Mash is doomed, but Mash orders the words to stop moving around, as he crushes his pen, causing the words to arrange themselves out of fear. He finishes the test early, and Lucci is surprised to see that everything is so perfectly aligned. Mash continues to use his superhuman abilities to pass the other parts of the exam, making everyone surprised, while Lucci thinks of a way to eliminate him. Lucci causes a maze to appear from the ground, giving the examinees 30 minutes to reach the goal. A girl named Lemon approaches Mash, wanting to tag along with him, so they start walking together, but she keeps on falling for the traps, and Mash realizes that she is useless. While his back is turned, she uses a spell to restrain him with cuffs, telling him that there is a reason why she needs to keep him away from the goal. But Mash easily breaks free and dashes off, because he also has his reasons to pass the test. After he leaves, a creature approaches Lemon, asking her a riddle, but she fails to answer it, so it attacks her, but Mash punches the creature, knocking it out with a single punch. Lemon wonders why he saved her, and Mash explains that they must be there for a similar reason, so he feels sorry for her. She is worried that they won't be able to complete the maze in time, but Mash has a plan. Meanwhile, Lucci is confident that Mash is going to fail, but the ground suddenly starts shaking as they hear loud noises. The wall breaks as Mash joins them, and we learn that he just destroyed the maze to create a path. The other successful examinees call him a cheater, telling him to go home, but Lemon tells them that it wasn't Mash's fault, confessing that Lucci promised to get her into the school if she stopped Mash. Lucci admits to this, saying that he doesn't like Mash as he unleashes his magical powers. He tells them that he will fail Mash and Lemon, asking them if they want to challenge his decision. But Mash crushes Lucci's wand with his fist as he tells the professor that he has gone too far. At that moment, the headmaster Wahlberg arrives, informing them that the final interview is about to begin and that he will now be acting as the examiner. Mash is the first applicant to be interviewed, so he is taken to a room where he is surrounded by school officials. He is asked a few questions, and the officials don't seem to like his answers. However, the headmaster finds him interesting, asking him why he saved the girl in the maze even though he didn't have enough time left. Mash tells him that he had a feeling that he would regret not saving her, and Wahlberg realizes that Mash is the type to act before thinking, explaining that there are creatures stronger than him, and he wonders if Mash would act that way if faced with such a creature. Wahlberg uses his magic to summon a large creature that threatens to harm a doll, which contains the soul of the person that is dearest to Mash, who is obviously burned dead. Mash tries to stop it by punching it, but it does nothing, and his hand starts bleeding. The school officials are surprised when he uses his hands to stop the blade from reaching the doll. He knows that the creature will eventually disappear, intending to outlast it. Wahlberg realizes that Mash is someone who can protect the weak and regulate the strong, so he recalls the creature and lights up the place, revealing that Mash was just being tested, as he welcomes him to the Easton Magic Academy. Later on, we see them in class, where they learn the lock opening spell, which is considered to be basic. The teacher demonstrates it, but Mash just uses his hands to destroy the lock, making the teacher angry because he didn't even use magic. Mash explains that he is not good with magic, while the boy next to him, Finn, starts seeing him as a troublemaker. After class, Finn looks for his dorm, hoping Mash is not going to be his roommate. He finds his room, but the door is missing, and he sees Mash holding onto it, making him realize that they are going to be sharing the room. They get to know each other, and Finn starts to think that Mash is just a normal guy, but he suddenly introduces Finn to his muscles, making him think he is a weirdo. Mash asks Finn if he can borrow his broom for the next class, since he brought a giant plant root instead, thinking it was a broom. Finn allows it, and the next day, the teacher trains them to fly with the broom. Mash tries to do it, but the broom won't respond to him, so he gets ridiculed by a student, saying that he's slowing the class down. But Mash stomps his foot, and causes the broom to fly into his hand. The student calls him a cheater, saying he didn't use magic, as the teacher announces a time trial to see how fast the students can fly with their brooms. The guy challenges Mash to a race, where the loser must obey the winner until they graduate. Mash accepts the challenge, so they prepare to race. The instructor doubts Mash can even ride his broom, but she begins the race anyway, and Mash ends up winning instantly, setting a new world record with his speed. Everyone is confused, because they didn't even see Mash move, but Finn saw Mash throw the broom forward, and jump towards it, allowing him to ride it while it was in midair. The student accuses Mash of cheating, and he takes pity on him, so he drops the bet. The guy continues to run his mouth, but it gets stitched shut as a student named Cavill makes his entrance. He apologizes on his friend's behalf, but everyone knows that Cavill is a troublemaker, so they are worried about Mash, thinking he has just become a target. Cavill introduces himself to Mash, but Mash mishears his name as Cabbage, making everyone fall silent. Cavill prepares to cast a spell, but the teacher interrupts, reminding them that they are in the middle of class. So Cavill tells him to meet him after class, and he leaves the scene. As they make their way back to their room, Finn reveals that Cavill is the son of a high-ranking member at the Bureau of Magic. He adds that Mash will get expelled if he messes with Cavill, since his family has close ties with the vice principal, and Finn has actually seen students suffer because of Cavill, so he understands why everyone is scared of him. Mash starts baking cream puffs on his own, enjoying the experience, while Cavill is waiting for him at the field, and becomes upset that Mash isn't showing up. The next day, Mash takes out his book for his next class, but it's in terrible condition. Cavill approaches him, asking him why he didn't show up, and Mash apologizes, saying he was too busy making cream puffs, which seems to annoy Cavill. Cavill asks him if he wants to become the Divine Visionary, claiming that he can help Mash achieve his goal by using his connection with the vice principal if Mash will follow his orders. Mash immediately agrees to this, and he turns into Cavill's lapdog, following his every order as part of the deal. Mash prepares for his next class, but he realizes that his book about the subject is also in bad shape. Finn reluctantly agrees to share his book, and Mash thinks he is lucky to have a friend like Finn. Mash gives Cavill some water, but he pours it on the floor, ordering Mash to clean it up. As Mash cleans the floor, it's revealed that Cavill was ordering Finn to tamper with Mash's books, but he is getting bored, so he wants Finn to burn Mash's clothes. Finn refuses to obey, so Cavill uses his magic to bring Finn to his knees and beat him up. After some time, Mash arrives at the scene, asking Cavill what he's doing. Cavill claims he just wants to get an apology from Finn, who starts crying as he confesses that he ruined Mash's books under Cavill's orders, apologizing for his actions. Cavill asks Mash if he wants to have dinner with the vice principal, but Mash goes to him and bashes his head against the floor, instantly knocking him out. Finn tells Mash that he is going to get expelled, making him realize that he is in trouble. The vice principal Farman suddenly arrives, revealing that Cavill's father entrusted him to look after his son. Farman witnessed the entire incident, but he calls it a violent attack against Cavill, so he is going to hold a school conference to discuss what they just did. He mentions that their status is different from Cavill, so he deserves special treatment, even calling them idiots. As he continues to run his mouth, Mash rushes over to him, landing a knee strike on his face, while the others watch in horror. Mash explains that since Farman isn't open to reason, it would make sense to beat him up, since he is already in trouble anyway. Farman threatens to expel him as he tries to cast a spell, but Mash slaps dirt on his face. He digs a hole in the ground, slamming Farman into the hole, and he proceeds to cover it up. Farman warns Mash that he won't get away with this, but Mash threatens to bury him alive. After that, he is summoned by the headmaster, who tells him that he just received a notice from the Bureau of Magic to have him expelled. We learn that the Bureau of Magic is the highest legal authority in the land, and the divine visionaries produced by the Academy are at its core. He reminds Mash about Cavill's status, but he burns the notice because he doesn't want good people to be put at a disadvantage. Wahlberg rants about the current status of the world, since it only serves the elites. He thinks that it needs more people like Mash, who are willing to sacrifice themselves to do the right thing, and he even wants Mash to become a divine visionary someday. Mash mentions how he plans to become one, so the headmaster explains the way to become one, but Mash can't handle all the information. So Wahlberg decides to keep it simple, telling him that he just needs to earn high marks and acquire as many coins as possible. He assures Mash that he will take care of the bureau and the vice principal, and Mash takes his leave. The next day, the captain of the Duello team, Tom, invites him to represent their dorm in a game, which is basically like Quidditch from Harry Potter. Mash says that he can't ride a broom, but Tom doesn't believe him, dragging him into the team. During the match, the enemy grabs possession of the ball, and Mash is still on the ground, as he reiterates that he can't ride a broom. The crowd thinks that he isn't even trying, so they jeer at him, throwing things at him. His team is getting wrecked, and Tom goes to him, explaining the rules of the game. We learn that they need to pass the ball through the enemy's ring to earn points, and the use of magic is forbidden, since the game is all about broom technique. Tom is about to get back to the game, when the enemy captain intentionally bumps into him, causing him to fall. Mash checks up on him, and Tom seems to have broken some bones, asking the enemy captain about his sense of sportsmanship. But the enemy captain doesn't care, revealing that winning is all that matters to him. Before getting back into the game, Tom knows that their team is about to lose, but he tells Mash that winning isn't everything, and that giving one's best is even more important. They are 50 points behind, making the enemy captain think that they are about to win, but they seem to have enraged Mash, who grabs onto his broom and jumps into the air. He maintains his altitude by rapidly kicking around, leaving the spectators confused. He gains possession of the ball, while the enemy team charges toward him, but he uses his inhuman strength to throw the ball, blowing them away and scoring a point. The crowd is surprised as the ball circles around, returning to Mash like a boomerang. He keeps repeating the same move to score more points, while everyone watches on in disbelief. Their score eventually reaches 999, making them the winners, and the Academy recognizes their score as a record, and they are given silver coins as a reward. Finn thinks his performance was incredible, but Mash doesn't want to play that game again, while Tom gives him a hug, as he thanks him for helping the team win. Later, we see a student named Lance reading a newspaper, where he learns about Mash's achievement. He recognizes Mash from the entrance exam, destroying his picture as he makes Mash's next target. During his class, Tom pesters him into practicing for their game, while Lemon wants to study with him, but Mash isn't interested in spending time with them. At that moment, Lance appears, and Lemon recognizes him as the student who topped the entrance exam. Lance wants to do something fun, pulling out a special magical tool and opening it, causing Mash's friends to disappear, as they are trapped inside of the bottle. Lance tells Mash to go to the forest if he wants them back, and then disappears. They meet at the forest, where Lance reveals he is also collecting coins, showing 2 silver coins. We learn that most people only have 1 magic line on their face, but there are rare cases when a person has more magic lines, indicating that they have greater magical power. Lance challenges Mash to a duel, where they each bet 1 silver coin, and Mash accepts the duel, so Lance pulls out his wand, using a spell to prepare the area for their duel. After he has cleared the area, Mash tries to attack him with his fists, but Lance uses a gravity spell to slam him to the ground. Mash struggles as he tries to stand, while Lance tells him that no human can withstand his spell, but Mash punches through the ground, pulling out giant roots and splitting the earth beneath his opponent, driving him back. Lance lands on his knees, stunned by Mash's ridiculous power, as Mash dashes towards him. Lance tries to stop Mash with the same gravity spell, but Mash uses his speed to escape and tries to punch him, but Lance narrowly dodges his attacks. His necklace falls to the ground, and Mash picks it up out of curiosity. He opens it up, revealing the picture of Lance's sister, and Lance confesses that he has a sister complex, telling Mash to give it back. Lance asks him what is the most important thing in the world. Mash tries to answer cream puffs, but Lance tells him he is wrong, and the only correct answer is his little sister, making Mash think that he's a creep. Lance threatens to drop his friends down the cliff, claiming that he will use them to help him win the match. In a flashback, we learn that Lance's sister is suffering from an incurable disease that will strip her of her magical powers, and without them, she will have to be taken out, because magicless people have no right to live in their world, so Lance wants to become a divine visionary to save his sister from the system. Back in the present, Lance drops the bottle, using a magic spell to accelerate its descent, but Mash changes into his workout gear. He gets into starting position and dashes forward, moving so fast that he disappears before his enemy's eyes. Lance tries to look for him, and Mash suddenly appears behind him. He can't believe that Mash managed to recover the bottle so quickly, thinking he must be using magic, but Mash is no longer interested in fighting, because he knows that Lance is not a bad guy, pointing out that the bottle he dropped was empty. He rushes towards Lance, managing to grab the real bottle, and he frees his friends. Lance concedes the duel, handing over his silver coin before leaving. As he walks away, Mash realizes that Lance is actually a pretty good guy, and his friends surround him, thanking him for saving them. We learn that there are 3 dorms at the academy that divide the students based on their characteristics. There's Mash's dorm Adler, which represents courage, the Orca dorm for wisdom, and the Lang dorm for ambition, with the 3 dorms having a rivalry between them at the academy. Mash puts together his silver coins, and we learn that 5 silver coins are equivalent to 1 gold coin. He relaxes with Finn, who suddenly starts to panic because they haven't done their potions assignment. Lance shows up, calling them slackers for forgetting the assignment, worrying they are going to ruin their dorm's reputation. But Mash uses his necklace against him, and just seeing his little sister blows him away and knocks him out cold. He ends up deciding to help them, revealing a screaming mandrake used for the assignment, a plant that becomes a useful ingredient after it is silenced. He shows them the spell to put it asleep, and tells them to give it a shot. But when Mash tries out the spell, his mandrake starts freaking out instead. Lance gives Finn some pointers, telling him to focus his magic on a single point, and Finn manages to put his mandrake to sleep. But meanwhile, Mash's mandrake has become huge, going on a rampage, but Mash just gives it a slap and knocks it out. Lance moves on to preparing the mandrake, saying it's pretty easy, showing them how it's done, cooking it up, and creating a potion. Finn thinks it's not easy at all, but Mash is confident, saying it's no problem since it doesn't require any magic. So he repeats the steps that Lance showed him, but he ends up making a cream puff instead. Lance thinks he is messing around, so he watches Mash and guides him step by step, but it still turns out as a cream puff, which leaves Lance completely confused. And despite all his attempts, it always comes out as a cream puff, but they are actually pretty good. We see Headmaster Wahlberg as he thinks about the upcoming cross-dorm, off-campus class, wondering if Mash will be okay. We see a student named Barrett as he bumps into some other students. They tell him off, but he ends up beating them all up, and he calls them side characters. Meanwhile at the Lang dorm, they think that those who rule should have overwhelming power, thinking that the Adler dorm is unworthy, so the leader orders for them to take all of the coins from the Adler students. The next day, the Lang and Adler dorms have a joint class in the forest. Mash wonders what they will be doing for the class, and they notice Barrett, who makes a racket about how he is the main character. Mash thinks he is weird, but Barrett thinks he is a side character, looking at his appearance. But Lemon arrives, asking Mash if she can tag along with him. Barrett gets annoyed and spits on Mash. He starts freaking out about how he is getting attention from a girl, thinking that it's because of people like him that he can't get a girl himself. But the group just ignores him, and he gets even more annoyed. However, the professor appears, explaining their next class. They are tasked with taking out forest scorpions and retrieving the stone from their heads. Regular stones are worth a bronze coin, but the stronger scorpions have a square stone, which is worth a silver coin. The professor sends them off, and Mash is aiming for a silver coin. He is suddenly approached by a student named Silva, who witnessed his feat during his duello match, but reminds him he is nothing as he attacks Mash with a pillar of iron. The professor breaks things up, and Silva claims they were just messing around. Mash glares at him, but Lance ends up stopping him, revealing that Silva is actually a year older than them, but since he was a troublemaker, he was held back for a year. Lance warns him to avoid Silva, but Mash is just glad his cream puff didn't get squished. They head into the forest, and Lance thinks they should work together, but Mash disappears because he happened to zone out. He runs into Barrett, who starts freaking out, but he just slaps him. Barrett wants to fight him, but they suddenly hear a scream as we see a girl being attacked by another student. She cries for help, and there is an explosion that defeats the boy. The girl thanks Barrett for saving her, and he starts to freak out. He tries to act cool, but when she grabs his hand, he starts to lose it. Meanwhile, we see a defeated scorpion, as it seems Silva has already obtained a square stone, but it seems there is something else he is after. The girl thanks Barrett once again, and their knees touch. Barrett is overwhelmed, and starts slamming his head into the ground, but we learn that the girl is using magic to charm him, magic that makes anyone who finds her attractive to fall madly in love with her. She tries to work her magic on Mash, but he says he didn't really do anything, and the girl is shocked it's not working on him. Barrett wonders about her situation, and the girl explains she is being threatened by Silva, who is forcing her to use her unique magic. Barrett swears to help her, and at that moment, they are suddenly attacked, and Silva appears. Barrett decides to fight him to help the girl. He attacks with a barrage of fireballs, ending things with a giant explosion. Meanwhile, we see Finn and Lemon clinging onto Lance as they cry for help, but he wonders if Mash is okay, since he is being targeted by Silva. Barrett thinks he has won, but as the smoke clears, we see that Silva protected himself with his iron. He attacks Barrett with his pillar, and knocks Mash's cream puff out of his hand. Silva continues to taunt them to fight him, while Mash is just stunned by the loss of his cream puff. Barrett starts to get worried, thinking there is a big difference in their magic power. He thinks Mash is no use, so he thinks it's all up to him to save the girl. Silva starts taunting him, saying his magic was weak and calling him a letdown. So he decides to give them a chance, saying if he can take 5 of his attacks, he will leave the girl alone, even wagering a silver coin in accordance with the rules of the academy. The girl thinks it's a ridiculous deal, saying he could get seriously injured, but Barrett accepts it, thinking he can withstand 5 hits. However, Silva says that Mash is also a part of it, so he also needs to agree. Barrett says Mash isn't involved, but Silva insists that he is, so Barrett decides to take on all 10 attacks to cover for Mash. Silva thinks he is mad, and he starts attacking with his Iron Fist spell. Barrett is brought to his knees after just 1 attack, but he manages to get back up. Silva keeps on attacking with his spell, and Barrett is continuously slammed by the iron pillars, while the girl and Mash watch on. After 9 attacks, Barrett is still standing, thinking about how the girl cried for his help. Silva prepares an extra strong attack for the final blow. The attack lands, and Barrett is knocked out. Silva starts to gloat, but Barrett somehow manages to get back up. He approaches Silva, saying that it's over, but he suddenly collapses, and Silva calls him an idiot. Barrett tells Mash to take the girl and run, but it's revealed that the girl is actually working with Silva, as she calls him cheesy, and says that she hates guys like him. Silva laughs at him for being so easily tricked, but his mouth is suddenly stuffed with a cream puff. Mash thinks they have gone too far, and decides to join the fight, saying that he will join the 10-hit challenge, telling Silva to bring it on. Meanwhile, we see his friends manage to take out a scorpion, but Lance wonders if Mash will be okay. Lemon thinks he will be fine, since he even beat the professor during their entrance exam, but Lance explains there are different types of magic users. There are white mages that are more academic and support-focused, and there are red mages that focus on combat, and Mash has really only gone up against white mages so far. He thinks that if Mash were to go up against any red mage past their first year, there would be many that would surpass him. Silva thinks Mash is just acting tough, And he goes on to say how he hates weaklings that act tough, seeing them as hypocrites, and he finds it amusing to crush their spirits. He notices his robe is slightly singed from Barrett's magic, so he prepares to attack him again, but Mash rushes at him, although he manages to counter. Mash is pushed back, and Silva starts to laugh, thinking he is far superior, mentioning how he earned 2 gold coins during his first year at the academy. He attacks Mash with his magic, and Mash gets pummeled, but he eventually catches Silva's spell, crushing it with his hand. Mash prepares to use tricep magic, and Silva thinks he is messing around. He keeps on attacking with his iron pillars, but Mash dodges and starts smashing right through them. He lands a punch on Silva, blowing him away, and he starts bleeding all over the place, wondering what is going on. He thinks his magic is top tier, even among the second-year students, as he launches a counterattack, but Mash smashes right through it, landing another blow on him. Silva is brought to his knees, and he starts to realize he can't win. He knows he can't take any more hits, but Mash suddenly backs away and takes a seat. Silva wonders what he is doing, and Mash tells him there are 8 more attacks to go. Mash gets back up, asking if he is ready for the next attack, but Silva knows he can't take any more, thinking he would die. He tries to think of a plan, and at that moment, an enormous scorpion suddenly appears. It has a star-shaped stone on its head, which means it's extra strong and valuable. Silva thinks he can get away while Mash is occupied by it, but Mash sends it flying with a single hit, and it drops its star-shaped stone. Silva starts freaking out, thinking Mash is a monster, but Mash calls off their fight, feeling bad for him, and he turns his attention to the girl. The girl starts panicking, and she turns on the waterworks, crying and saying that she was forced into helping Silva. But Mash tells her it's okay, and she thinks that men are just too easy to manipulate. But Mash believes in equality, as he slams her into the ground, and Barrett thinks there is something wrong with him. Mash meets up with his friends, and Lemon worries, seeing him all beaten up, but he says he is fine. Finn is impressed he even beat the Starstone Scorpion, revealing that it's worth 2 silver coins. Lemon thinks he should go to the nurse's office, and she checks up on Barrett as well. He is instantly charmed by her, and he starts freaking out, while she thinks he is just weird. Barrett ends up apologizing to Mash for getting him mixed up into things, and thanks him for his help. But Mash thinks he is acting weird, so Barrett immediately threatens to beat him, saying it took everything for him to be nice. Mash's pocket suddenly glows, as his silver coins have joined to become a gold coin. Lance mentions how they are being targeted, hearing that the Lang dorm is hunting them for their coins, explaining why Silva was after them. He explains that the Lang dorm is basically Slytherin, with people that value birthright and bloodlines, wanting to prevent the riffraff from joining the Bureau of Magic. He warns them to watch out for the Magia Lupus, the group of elite students from the Lang dorm. Mash mentions how he didn't even know they were separated by dorms, and Finn reminds him about the sorting ceremony. We see that right after they were accepted into the academy, they were sorted by the skeleton of a unicorn. The students grab onto its horn, and the skeleton is able to read their mind and sort them into the appropriate dorm. But when it was Mash's turn, it sees he only thinks about cream puffs. The skeleton panics, as this is the first time in centuries it has struggled to sort a student. It tries to look deeper into his mind, but there's really only cream puffs. And it just decides that people who love cream puffs must belong to the Adler dorm. Lance continues to explain that the Magia Lupus consists of the 7 top students of the dorm, and Silva must have been one of their lackeys. He warns Mash that since he has a coin, he needs to be extra careful, telling him to stick with people from their dorm. But despite this warning, Mash ends up getting lost while looking for his class. He finds a door to a room, and he thinks about how to open it, wondering if it is a push or a pull. Meanwhile, we see Silva as he apologizes for his failure. We learn that the leader of the Lang dorm is named Abel, and he holds a creepy-looking doll. He says that their mission is to cleanse the world of its impurities, and Silva begs for a second chance, but Abel calls him unworthy to even be a pawn, and he is turned into a doll. The doll gets up and proceeds to get in line, and Abel claims he is the only one worthy to become the next divine visionary, as he talks to his doll, which he calls Mother. But at that moment, Mash suddenly enters, apologizing for destroying another door, and he points out that Abel is weird for talking to a doll. Abel is aware that Mash has a gold coin, and he asks him why he is trying to become a divine visionary. Mash says he just wants to live peacefully with his family, but the current world won't accept him. Abel thinks he is ridiculous and unworthy, explaining how he wants to return the world to its rightful form. He says humanity was able to flourish, thanks to getting rid of the weak and people without magic, but he thinks society has started to become weak. He calls humans beasts by nature, so he plans to restore the natural order. But Mash thinks he just wants to live peacefully as well, not understanding what he was saying. Abel offers to let him go in exchange for his gold coin, but Mash just refuses. Abel attacks with one of his puppets, but Mash dodges, countering with his legs and ripping the strings attached to the puppet, and it turns back into Silva. Mash is suddenly grabbed by another puppet. The puppet grabs his coin and flicks it over to Abel. Mash is then thrown into a pillar, but he gets back up, apologizing for calling his puppet weak, but decides to take Silva to the infirmary. Abel wonders if he is giving up on his coin, but Mash says he is just prioritizing, but he declares he won't lose, no matter how strong they are. Mash leaves with Silva, but Abel feels something is off. He notices a missing button on his puppet, and he finds it in his hand instead of Mash's coin. One of the students can't believe what just happened. As the puppet was flicking the coin, Mash ripped its button off, spitting it out at an incredible speed, hitting the coin in midair, and sucking his coin back to himself. The girl can't believe it, and Abel finds Mash interesting. At the infirmary, Silva suddenly wakes up, wondering what happened, because he has no memory of anything after he was turned into a doll. But he sees Mash working out in front of him, and he realizes Mash must have saved him. Seeing he is okay, Mash decides to leave, and Silva reflects on his actions. Meanwhile, in Mash's dorm room, we see Lance and Barrett in a heated discussion. Finn wonders what they are doing in his room, but Barrett gets pissed off looking at Lance, thinking he's had an easy life thanks to his good looks. Lance wants to teach him a lesson, and the two prepare to fight, but Mash suddenly enters, telling them not to break things in his room. Mash enjoys a cream puff, thinking it's just another peaceful day. Lemon suddenly appears, saying there is big news, leading them over to a magic scale. The scale shows how many gold coins each dorm has, and we see the Lang dorm already has 15, while the Alder and Orca dorms only have 1 each. So at this rate, Lang will have the next divine visionary. The Orca dorm is too busy focused on their research, so it's up to them to stop the Lang dorm. The guys get fired up, thinking they just need to crush the Lang students. But Mash ends up in the owl hut, and we learn that the headmaster was forced to give him a punishment, so he has to clean the owl hut for a week. The owls peck at him, and he thinks about how they were just getting fired up. Lance decides to join him, saying that the Lang students might target him since he has a coin, so he can use that as a chance to hunt them, but Mash thinks he is just worried about him. Meanwhile, we see 2 Lang students approaching, preparing themselves to take Mash's coin. The owls keep pecking at Mash, and water suddenly appears underneath him, and he falls in, while Lance dodges a giant spinning blade. Mash struggles in the water, and the 2 Lang students introduce themselves as Andrew and Shinri, the 6th and 7th fangs of the Magia Lupus, challenging them to a fight, while wagering a gold coin. Mash says he's never swum, as he sinks into the water. Andrew transforms into a shark, and jumps into some water to go after Mash, leading Shinri to face off against Lance. Shinri attacks with his blade, but Lance dodges, thinking his magic to control a spinning blade is pretty weak compared to his gravity magic. But as he goes to cast his spell, he is distracted by the owls. He dodges another attack, and tries to focus on casting his spell, but he thinks of his sister, telling him not to harm the owls. Shinri attacks using double blades, and Lance notices the owls behind him, so he ends up getting hit by the attack. Lance manages to use his spell, but it only makes a shovel fall to the ground. Shinri is disappointed with him, and decides to finish him off, attacking with triple blades. But he thinks something is off, as he notices all the owls in one spot. Lance uses his gravity spell, crushing all of the blades, as he says the owls were in the way, so he moves them by dropping a shovel to cut open a bag of feed. Shinri attacks using his strongest blade, but Lance easily crushes him with his gravity. Shinri can't believe that even though they both have double lines, there is such a big difference in their power, but Lance says that someone like him, who fights for themselves to feel superior, can't compare to him, who fights for the sake of saving his sister. Meanwhile, Andrew gloats about trapping Mash in his sea field, saying there is no way to escape. But Mash suddenly zooms past, and Andrew is shocked at the speed. He thinks about how Mash said he didn't know how to swim, but Mash says he got the hang of it, thanking him for helping him realize he could swim. Mash continues to swim all around him, and Andrew feels like he is the one getting hunted, so he uses another spell to transform into a more monstrous form, but Mash crashes into him, continuously hitting him as he swims. Andrew can't handle the blows, and Mash ends up escaping the sea field. Lance takes their coin, and they think they weren't that strong for being members of the Magia Lupus. Mash thinks they aren't a big deal, but suddenly, another one of their members appear. In an instant, he gets past the both of them, and Lance tries to use his gravity spell, but for some reason, his spell doesn't work. Mash immediately gets into his gear, charging with all his speed, but the man manages to dodge him. Lance wonders if he uses some kind of teleportation magic, but the man uses a magic bottle to collect his allies. The man bids them farewell, but says they will meet again soon, and Lance thinks that beating the Magia Lupus might not be so easy after all. As the masked man walks away, his mask cracks, and he thinks about Mash's attack. He thinks about how he was able to move so fast, even without magic, and he wonders if they are the same. At night, we see the man as he confronts a student from the Orca dorm for his gold coin. The student attacks with magma magic, but he is completely unfazed, and ends up easily defeating him, disappointed it ended so quickly. Elsewhere, we see a puppet, in the robes of a student, wandering through the school. The next day, Lance plans how they should deal with the Magia Lupus. We learn the location of each dorm is hidden, so Lance suggests finding the Lang dorm and going on the offensive to take their coins, but Mash is too busy making cream puffs. Lance gives him a new robe, and Mash notices it has a logo on the back. Lance tells him it's the mark of Adler, hoping it will remind him that he belongs to their dorm. Lemon suddenly bursts in, telling them something happened to Tom. They visit him in the infirmary, and find he looks completely drained. Tom says he has no memory of how he ended up in the infirmary, but notes that he normally lives his life at full throttle, so he usually falls right asleep and doesn't dream, but last night, he dreamt he was trapped in a dark box, feeling conscious, but he couldn't do anything. Lemon wonders how he is feeling, and Tom says he is okay, but it seems he is temporarily unable to use magic, feeling as though his magic energy has been drained from him. It's revealed there are a number of other students who are suffering from the same condition, and it seems to have started ever since the headmaster was called away by the Bureau of Magic. Lemon gives Mash a cream puff lucky charm, and makes him promise not to do anything too risky. She tells him to always keep it with him, so he can think of her, but she starts to lose it imagining him dreaming about her. Later that night, Lance and Mash wander around the school, looking for the Lang dorm. They are joined by Barrett and Finn, but Lance wonders why they are tagging along. Barrett is interested in getting coins, and Finn just doesn't want to be left alone in his room. As they explore, they end up seeing Lemon, and Barrett rushes over to her, but Lance notices something is off. Lemon's body twists and convulses, and she has been turned into a puppet. But the others manage to avoid her gaze. She continues on her way, and Barrett finds her cute even as a puppet. They decide to go after her, but when they turn the corner, they come to a dead end. Finn hears the crackling of her body, and Lance uses Revelio, which reveals a hidden door. Lance notes they need another spell to open the door, and Barrett tries using his fireballs to blow it open, but the door doesn't even budge, and he wonders how they are going to get in. But Mash grabs a suit of armor, throwing it down next to the door, and he is able to crack it open. He sticks the sword inside, using it as a lever, and he steps on it, blowing the door right out of the school and creating a huge hole in the roof. Lance notes that the Magia Lupus is probably waiting for them inside, and Mash looks at his good luck charm, thinking he won't be able to keep his promise to Lemon. The group heads in, and they are surprised there was a hidden space under the school. They see light at the end of the tunnel, and they come out to an arena. A student named Gitsuku appears, and tells them they need to defeat him in order to continue. Lance is about to fight, but Barrett decides to step in, since he has a grudge against good-looking guys. Barrett rants about how easy his life must be, but Gitsuku thinks he's just jealous, and he transforms his wand into a rose whip, and the two prepare to fight. Meanwhile, at the Bureau of Magic, we see Headmaster Wahlberg talking to the director. Wahlberg knows he must have been called for a serious issue, and the director reveals that 6 of the most notorious criminals on death row have escaped their prison. The guards were all slaughtered, and it seems they had help from the one known as Innocent Zero. Back at the arena, Barrett attacks with his fireball, but it gets stopped by Getsuku's vines. The vines lash out, and Barrett barely manages to dodge. However, Barrett is still confident he will win, as he attacks with another round of fireballs, but they just land around Getsuku, creating marks around him. Barrett tells him to watch his step, saying they have 5 times the power as normal. Getsuku thinks it's a lame trap, but Barrett is sure he will fall for it. Getsuku wonders if Barrett has a way to move him into the trap, but he attacks with his rose whip. Barrett gets grabbed, and he even drops his wand. Getsuku grows the thorns on his vines, stabbing Barrett with the spikes. Getsuku tells him the fight is over and goes to finish him off, but Barrett activates his trap card, causing a huge explosion from one of the marks. Getsuku's wand is destroyed, and Barrett mentions he never said anything about stepping on the marks, revealing that his spell was actually a time bomb. He activates his remaining marks, and Getsuku can't believe he lost to someone like him. Finn congratulates him, and Barrett is excited to face another opponent, but Getsuku poses even though he is defeated, and the group suddenly starts sinking into the ground. Mash tries to save his cream puff, and they all get sucked into the ground. They land on the floor below, and it seems they are all split up. Lance suddenly feels an overwhelming energy, and he is confronted by Maddle, the third fangs of the Magia Lupus. Barrett and Finn land together, and they come across Milo and Love, the 4th and 5th fangs. And Finn thinks they are doomed, but Barrett tells him not to give up, thinking he has the power of the main character. Meanwhile, Mash lands in a dark room, wondering where his friends are. The room lights up, and he is greeted by the masked man, who introduces himself as Razor, the 2nd fangs of the Magia Lupus. He compliments Mash on his movements from their last meeting, but he seems to have figured out that Mash can't use any magic, and Mash gets worried that someone has figured out his secret. We see Maddle as he explains how strength is everything in their world, and the weak are worthless. Lance isn't interested, and attacks using his gravity magic, but Maddle gets squished into mud, and seeps into the ground. Maddle reappears behind him with a number of clones. Lance defends himself with his spell, squashing them back into mud, but Maddle tells him it's useless, as the mud starts to reform. Lance thinks he needs to attack the real body to stop the clones, so he decides to attack the whole field with his magic. But Maddle reappears behind him once again, catching him with his mud, and Maddle attacks with a barrage of hardened mud balls. Maddle thinks Lance is pretty skilled, but says his talent is being wasted, so he invites him to serve the Magia Lupus. Maddle explains that mages develop depending on their environment and the people around them. He calls everyone in the Adler dorm trash, and tells Lance he will only sink to their level by hanging around them. He boasts about the talent they have in the Magia Lupus, as well as having the best education, tools, and potions. But Lance scoffs, saying that his strength isn't reliant on his environment, calling Maddle inferior. Lance attacks with his magic, but this time, he sends Maddle into the wall. He explodes with mud, and it seems he has surrounded the room with mud to absorb any impacts. So against gravity magic, which relies on slamming opponents into the ground, Maddle thinks he can't lose. But Lance suddenly starts attacking with rocks instead, and he realizes Lance has worked out his trick. Maddle is forced out of hiding, and Lance claims that he must have a better environment since he is stronger. But Maddle tells him not to get cocky, as he takes out a potion of magical essence that was extracted from the other students. He drinks the potion, causing his power to surge, and he uses an advanced form of his magic known as Secondeth. He creates an enormous demon mud monster, and he goes on to explain that there are different tiers in magic. Secondeth magic can only be cast by double-liners, and only by the few that are worthy. Maddle thinks back to when he was a child, and his father explains that his worth is solely based on his aptitude for magic, so he has been focused on getting his father's approval. He thinks he is worthy after achieving this level of magic, telling Lance he will never be as strong since he hangs out with other failures. But Lance dodges his attack, thinking about how meeting Mash helped him improve, as he reveals he can also use Secondeth magic, creating gravity pillars that surround Maddle's monster. The monster is pulled by gravity from all sides by each of the pillars, and Lance creates one more above it, causing the monster to be ripped apart. Milo can't believe he lost, and he thinks back to how his father would never acknowledge him, no matter what he achieved, and he thinks that his father was right, and that he must be worthless. But Lance suddenly throws him his book that he found, and Lance comments on how worn it is, so he can see how hard he has worked to get where he is. Lance says that his own family valued worth by position and social standing, so he thinks they were raised in a similar way. But he thinks about his sister, who just wanted to be a singer and wanted to try her best, which helped him to realize that that is more important. Although he can't agree with the way Milo thinks, he respects his efforts, and he leaves to go find his friends. Meanwhile, we see Mash as he worries that Razor knows his secret. Razor thinks they are similar, since they are both rejected by the world, but he says he has his own reasons for being there, so the two prepare to fight. Mash gets changed into his workout gear, charging with a kick that pushes Razor back, but Razor suddenly dashes right past him, cutting him in the process. Razor tells him he can't win, as we see his magic that boosts his speed. He dashes all around, landing multiple hits, and he says they are on different levels. Mash refuses to give up, and Razor thinks his dream to live peacefully with his family is disgusting, because they have similar circumstances, but Mash was lucky with the people around him. He tells Mash to show him what he can do, revealing that Lemon is being drained of her magic power, and after 30 minutes, she will have no magic, just like him. Mash swears he will beat him, and Razor goes all out with his magic, repeatedly slashing Mash as he dashes all around him. Mash can't even defend himself, and ends up getting stabbed in the stomach, but his sword gets stuck as Mash clenches his abs, and he headbutts Razor in the face, breaking his mask, and revealing his face. His eye is red, but Mash thinks it's just bloodshot, and asks if he is okay. Razor explains that his eye is known as the Evil Eye, and has the power to disable anyone's magic. It's seen as a power from the devil, so he is seen as an outcast and rejected by the world. Mash apologizes since the eye doesn't work on him, and Razor explains he is the natural enemy of all magicians, so they have all feared and despised him his entire life. Even his family feared him, and he thinks he should never have been born, but thinks Mash wouldn't understand since he was blessed to have a loving father. He activates his second magic, creating a field around them, and an arrow appears on Mash's body. In an instant, Razor delivers another devastating attack, explaining that within the field, Mash's speed is drained and transferred to himself, so he had no chance of winning. Mash can only shield himself, and Razor tells him it's the end, but Mash smashes the ground, splitting the floor, and he destroys Razor's sword. Razor realizes that by splitting the floor, his movements were limited. He thinks about pulling back, but Mash steps on his foot, stopping him from running. Mash activates his muscle magic, delivering a devastating smash that blows Razor right out of the field. His spell is broken, and Mash chases him down, kicking him in the back. He gets thrown away, but thinks that if he loses, he will also lose his reason to live. So he tries to fight back, and the two clash, but Mash catches his sword, smashing him into the wall, and Mash proceeds to smash him around all over the place, finishing things off with a submission attack. As Razor lies on the ground, he wishes he was born normal. We learn his evil eye manifested when he was a child, and his parents locked him up in the basement so people wouldn't find out about him. But after some time, his parents even tried to kill him, and he came to the realization that he should never have been born. But he was given purpose by Abel. Even if he was being used as a tool, it gave him a reason to live, but now that he has failed, he thinks he is back to being unwanted. Mash can see how lucky he is to have his father, and he offers to become Razor's friend. But Razor thinks it's impossible, saying it's only a matter of time before his feelings about him will change. But as thanks for his kindness, Razor warns him not to go ahead, saying Abel is on a completely different level, and he has no chance of winning. Mash thanks him for the warning, but decides to keep going. He says that no matter what others think about him, his feelings won't change, and he invites him to have cream puffs together the next time they meet. Barrett and Finn are up against Milo and Love, but we see another student has found the secret door, and he prepares to head inside. Love sees they are both only single-liners, thinking they will be easy to deal with, and Milo decides to let her handle them herself, leaving to go and find Mash instead. Love immediately asks if they like her, but Barrett and Finn find this strange, saying they don't even know her, so she starts asking if they think she is cute instead. Barrett can tell she is trying to be manipulative, but he thinks she is totally his type. However, he claims Lemon is already his fiancée, so he can't be with her, and Love immediately tells him to die. Love claims that all women are queens, saying any guy who can't tell them they are cute and serve them don't deserve to live. Barrett thinks she is being too extreme, and Love asks them if they like her once again. Barrett tries to resist her, saying he already has Lemon, and Finn thinks it must be déjà vu. Barrett gets hit by Love's tornado magic and gets blown away. Love claims her father told her she can kill anyone who doesn't cherish her, but Barrett gets back up, attacking with his fireballs. Love says his magic is too weak, but the fireballs land short, causing a smoke screen instead. Barrett lunges for her wand, but Love blows him away, knocking him down. Love reveals that Milo's power is to turn a specific target to stone. The target is the one who opened the door, so Mash will be turned to stone if they don't defeat her and stop Milo within 30 minutes. Love traps Barrett in a tornado cage, telling him it will be impossible for him to escape. Barrett struggles inside it, and Love feels bad for Mash, because his friends are so weak, and she calls him a fool for trying to go up against Abel. Barrett feels like he is about to die, thinking there is nothing he can do, but he has a flashback to when he was a child, where some other kids are picking on him, trading him with their old broom. But there is suddenly an explosion as his sister stands up for him. She tells him he should fight back, but he thinks that would only make things worse. She thinks he gives up too easily, saying it will be a problem when he gets a real friend, someone who will stand up for him no matter what, so he must fight to hold on to people like that. He thinks about how Mash stood up for him, and he refuses to let Love mock his friend. As Love goes to finish Finn off, Barrett breaks free from her tornado cage. She attacks with her tornado, but Barrett easily cancels it out. She wonders how his power has suddenly increased, and she notices the mark on his head. Barrett says it's a crime to insult his friends, as he creates countless fireballs around the arena. Love panics, and Barrett claims he is the main character as he attacks with his fireballs. But when the smoke clears, it seems he intentionally missed, and he says he doesn't like hurting girls, so he tells her to just leave. But a stone head suddenly appears behind Finn, and Barrett pushes him out of the way, blocking the attack. Milo returns, wondering what's going on, and Love apologizes for losing. Barrett is glad Milo gave up on trying to turn Mash to stone, but Milo prepares to crush them. The hands are about to reach them, but Milo is suddenly stabbed by a sword and blown away. Finn recognizes the sword, and Milo wonders what happened. He becomes shocked, realizing he's up against the previous year's divine visionary, Rain. We learn he is the ace of the Alder dorm, and he is also Finn's older brother. Milo tries to regain his composure, thinking he is just a student. He attacks with his stone head, but Rain easily splits it in half, and he attacks Milo with all his swords. As the dust clears, Milo realizes he stands no chance, so he starts begging for his life. Barrett is shocked by how brutal he is, wondering if they are really on the same side. Rain tells them to get out, saying he will handle the rest, and Love quickly runs away. After his interrogation, Rain heads deeper into the dungeon, and we learn that he was sent by Headmaster Wahlberg because they had a lead on Innocent Zero, and his pawns should be in the area. He thinks they could be hiding their magic power, but he suddenly runs into Mash, who is eating a cream puff, and Rain finds he has a strange aura. He thinks Mash could be one of the pawns, so he summons a spider which can measure his magic power to see if he is really a student. Rain attacks with his sword, but Mash easily catches it, wondering what's going on. The spider detects he has zero magic, and it thinks it must be a bug, so Rain attacks again, this time with 3% of his power. The attack lands on Mash, but he ends up turning the swords into a chair. Rain asks for his name, and when Mash tells him, Rain remembers Wahlberg telling him about a new student who is quite unique. Rain apologizes for attacking him, but Mash doesn't accept it. Rain feels bad, so he gives Mash a magic handkerchief that has the power to heal his wounds, and Mash thinks he must like rabbits, but he thanks Rain for the item. Rain goes on to warn him about Abel, and Mash wonders how he knows. Rain reveals that Wahlberg told him about his goal to become the next divine visionary, so it's natural for him to be up against Abel, who currently holds the most coins. Rain supports his goal to become a divine visionary, wanting more allies that are strong. He warns Mash about Abel's doll magic, saying he might struggle against him because he has no magic, but Mash insists that he does. Rain wishes him luck, saying he has other things to do, and Mash thanks him for his help, but Rain claims he did everything for his own sake. We see Wahlberg telling him about how Mash puts his friends above himself, and how he even saved his brother, so Rain is rooting for him to achieve his goal. Mash finds the final room, wondering if the door is a push or a pull. He guesses correctly, but he thinks about Lemon and ends up blowing the door open. Abel is surprised he was able to defeat Razor, thinking Rain should be the only student that could stand up against Razor's evil eye, so Abel thinks he could be on the same level as a divine visionary, but Mash just worries Abel has worked out his secret. However, he becomes relieved when Abel just thinks he is strong, as he refers to him as a fellow superior being, reminding Mash of his plan to get rid of those who are inferior. He thinks the weak have been taking advantage of their kindness, gaining more rights, and making them weaker overall, so he wants to get rid of them all. Mash wonders if he means those who can't use magic, and Abel says they need to be disposed of, because just segregating them from society is not enough. Abel also includes underachievers, and people who shelter the weak on his list, but Mash thinks back to how Burndead took him in. He does a double backflip even as a kid, and Burndead gives him a taste of his first cream puff. He thinks about Burndead telling him how proud he is to have him as his son, and Mash realizes he can't be friends with Abel. We see Love as she goes to find Abel. She is relieved she managed to get away from Rain, but she finds the door to Abel's room broken, and she is shocked seeing Mash fighting against Abel. Mash crushes one of the puppets, but acid suddenly spills out from it, and Abel tells him he should be more careful. However, Mash grabs onto the head of the puppet he destroyed. Love wonders what Mash can do against the acid puppets, but Mash throws the head, and ends up bowling over all the acid puppets in a single strike. Love can't believe what she just witnessed, and Mash wonders if Abel would consider himself inferior if he loses. He also wonders what Abel has done with Lemon, but Abel claims he doesn't know who he is talking about, as he summons his stronger puppets. He thinks Mash doesn't stand a chance, but the puppets get sent flying, and Abel realizes Mash has gotten even stronger since their last meeting. Mash demands that if he wins, Abel must let Lemon go. Abel is impressed Mash isn't just all talk, but he uses the strongest puppet, Mash himself, as Mash starts to beat himself up. He can't control himself, and we see strings attached to his body. He starts choking himself out, but the string suddenly breaks, as Abel apologizes for using such a crude technique, saying it was too one-sided. Instead, he brings out Finn, who he managed to capture and turn into a puppet. He notes he also captured Barrett, but he was too injured to be useful, so Finn will serve as the entertainment. He sends Finn to attack, but Mash blocks the attack. However, Abel warns him he is not allowed to block, or else he will tear Finn to pieces. Mash starts getting beaten up, and Abel suggests he has the choice to take Finn out himself, saying that people always want to believe they are good, but that's not their true nature. Mash continues taking the hits, and Finn's axe ends up breaking, but Mash is still unfazed. He takes out his gold coin, and Abel wonders if he is finally ready to hand it over. Mash flicks it at him, but it actually cuts the strings controlling Finn, and Finn starts to transform back into a human. The coin returns to Mash, and he claims that the coin must just like him better. Abel uses his technique to control Mash once again, deciding that he is done messing around. Mash tries to resist, but Abel calls it useless, saying it's impossible for a human to resist his power. Mash says he will make him regret messing with his friends, as he is able to take a step, breaking one of Abel's fingers. Mash gets into position, as Abel struggles to hold him back, as Mash breaks free and smashes him in the face. However, Abel activates his skill, and Mash starts to turn into a puppet. Abel is impressed Mash managed to make him use this spell, but Mash is completely transformed into a puppet, and he says it's all over. Abel goes to take Mash's coin, but it turns out to just be a cream puff, and Abel is confused. He suddenly gets punched, and Mash returns to being a human, glad that his cream puff is okay. Abel wonders how Mash was able to move as a puppet, because his puppet magic blocks the electric signals from the brain, so he shouldn't be able to move. But he realizes it must have been a spinal reflex. Just like pulling back after touching something hot, or moving your foot when your knee gets tapped, there are some actions that bypass the brain to respond quickly to external threats. So taking Mash's cream puff was the trigger for the reflex, and Love thinks it's ridiculous that cream puff was so important to him. Abel acknowledges Mash, so he decides to use the power he gained from extracting the magic from the other students. He activates his second magic, summoning a giant puppet, and he reveals it has the ability to turn anyone within a 100-meter radius into a puppet. He explains the puppet will create invisible strings that will transform his body on contact, and Love worries she is also in range of the attack. Abel says it's impossible to counter his attack, and once he has become a puppet, he will be toyed with until he can never recover. The strings descend, covering the entire area, and Abel says Mash should be happy he made him use his ultimate skill, but his doll is somehow destroyed, and Mash is revealed to be fine. Abel wonders how he is still human, and Mash says he just tore the strings. Love is shocked by what actually happened, and we see Mash shifted his body in a particular way so that the strings touched him at different times, so the moment he felt the string on his left side, he instantly tore them when he still had control of his right hand, and Abel wonders if Mash is even human. He tries attacking with his puppet, but Mash completely shatters it, and he appears behind Abel, and he smashes him into the ground. In a flashback, we learn about Abel's mother. She was a kind and compassionate person, and although she was a noble, she treated the commoners just as equally, saying that it was only by chance that they were born privileged. She would distribute food to the poor, but one of them got greedy, wanting all the food for himself, and he ended up stabbing her when she resisted. Despite believing in the goodness of humanity, she was taken away, so Abel started to believe that the weak needed to be purged. He gathered the most talented people to join him, people who also weren't satisfied with the way things are in the world. He refuses to change his mind, saying it's natural for the strong to take from the weak, but Mash says he is wrong because there will always be bad people, no matter what their social standing is. Since he won their fight, Mash asks for Lemon's location, and Abel agrees to let all the students go. Mash thinks that since he was doing everything for the sake of his mother, he isn't such a bad guy. Abel releases his spell, revealing Lemon, and Mash catches her. Finn regains consciousness, and the three are glad to be reunited. They all celebrate, and Finn and Lemon call Mash a hero. Finn is in tears thanking Mash, and Lemon apologizes for getting him involved, and she thanks him for saving her. Barrett comes crawling over as well, saying he also helped, and they continue to celebrate together. Abel can't believe he lost to such buffoons, and Finn wonders what happened to Lance. We see Lance in the dungeon, and he runs into Rain. Lance suddenly blocks his attack, and Rain is surprised he could counter his magic. His spider companion reveals his power is through the roof, and we learn that it's not actually Lance, but one of Innocent Zero's associates. The man wonders how Rain saw through his disguise, but Rain is just attacking first and asking questions later, saying that it's faster that way. Rain wonders what Innocent Zero wants from the school. The man reveals they are searching for something. Abel was meant to help them look, but he turned out to be no help, so he is off to kill Abel since they no longer need him. Rain tries to go after him, but he gets stopped by a giant knife. The man goes on ahead, and we see Rain is confronted by another opponent, but he worries for Mash and his friends, because the man heading towards them has the power on the level of a divine visionary. We see Burndead and Brad wondering how Mash is going at the academy, hoping he hasn't been exposed for having no magic. Burndead wonders why Brad doesn't need to work, but he says he is there to get some screen time. Mash and his friends continue to celebrate, and Abel wonders how long they are going to keep fooling around for. Mash excuses himself, saying he needs to go to the bathroom, and his friends are just glad everything is over. We see the other students who were puppets have all been turned back to normal, but the criminals suddenly arise. They wonder who he is, but the man just blows them away. Barrett thinks about fighting him, but he instantly can sense how strong he is. The man approaches Abel, and we learn that his name is Cell. He sees that Abel lost against someone, and he calls Abel pathetic for not being able to reach the top at the school. Cell thanks him for his intel about the headmaster, but he suddenly controls Abel's hands, and Abel starts choking himself. Cell says he couldn't find the one they were looking for, so he is no longer needed. Abel is about to die, but Mash suddenly returns with a plate of cream puffs, ready to continue their celebration. His friends tell him it's not the time for that, and a fly suddenly lands on his nose. It tickles his nose, causing Mash to sneeze, and he throws the cream puffs at Cell. His friends wonder if it was just a coincidence, and Abel manages to get free. Mash asks for his cream puffs back, and his friends can't believe that's all he is thinking about. Cell throws the cream puffs to the ground, which shocks Mash, and Cell suddenly feels his head ache as he wonders if Mash is the one he has been looking for. Cell decides to finish what he started, as he lifts Abel up into the air. He prepares to finish him off, and Mash tries to save him, but Razor suddenly appears to protect Abel. Mash rushes over, and Razor apologizes, saying he won't be able to have a cream puff with him. Mash gives him back his magic handkerchief, and Cell is surprised his attack wasn't fatal. He realizes that just before he cast his spell, Mash threw a rock at him which altered his spell's trajectory. Mash stands up to him, and he smashes the ground, kicking one of the rocks at Cell. Everyone is surprised, because Cell is able to catch the rock, and he starts to lick it, but Mash just finds him weird for licking a rock. Cell tells him Razor only has 30 minutes before he is beyond help, so he wonders what Mash will be able to do. He starts attacking with his magic, which Mash smashes with his fists. Cell wonders if he is all talk, combining his magic into a stronger attack, and Mash gets hit. Abel thinks Mash can't win, because there is too much of a difference between them. He thinks back to how his mother would tell him that it was only by chance that they were privileged, and he thinks Cell is just superior to them, so he thinks they have no chance. Cell continues to launch his attacks, but Mash keeps on blocking the attacks. Abel thinks Razor was a fool for saving him, but Mash says Razor was happy. He says Razor was always alone, but Abel was able to give him a reason to keep living, and he was happy to be needed. Mash says he would feel the same way, imagining himself in Razor's situation. Abel remembers that his mother would also tell him to put himself in another's position, so that he can become kinder to others. Mash keeps on fighting, and we see how Razor was feared his entire life. He was always alone, wishing that he was never born, but when he met Abel who accepted him, he was finally able to find a reason to live. He tells Abel to get away while he still can, and Abel thinks he is noble, just like his mother. Mash is stuck defending, and Cell wonders if that is all he can do. Abel can see Mash has no chance to close in on Cell, and Cell starts to get bored, so he attacks with even bigger projectiles. Things are looking bad for Mash, but Abel's doll suddenly protects him. Abel sends his doll to attack, but Cell easily crushes it with his magic. He tells Abel he doesn't stand a chance, but one of the heads suddenly move, revealing Mash was hiding inside, and Mash smashes Cell in the face. Cell is protected by an armor, but he is surprised Mash was able to damage it. He wonders what kind of magic Mash is using, but he says it doesn't matter, as he takes out a mirror. Barrett recognizes it as the Spellflexion Mirror, a magic item that can reflect any kind of magic, so it's the most feared item among magic users. Barrett warns Mash, and Cell tells him to do his worst, saying he will be crushed by his own magic, but Mash smashes right through it. His friends become shocked, realizing Mash's power isn't magical, and they remember his past feats, and they think he is something out of a fairy tale. Cell is unfazed by Mash's attack, but he suddenly notices a mark forming on his hand, so he confirms Mash is really the one they are looking for. The room suddenly shatters, and two giant hands appear. Cell claims he has an urgent errand to run, but tells Mash he will see him again real soon. Cell disappears, and Mash is glad it's over. Abel heads to the infirmary with Razor, and Razor hopes to have cream puffs with Mash the next time they meet. Abel offers Mash his thanks, saying he will return the favor one day. Mash's friends join him, and they are still shocked he has no magic. They worry he will get into trouble if people found out, and Mash starts to get scared, claiming he can totally use magic. His friends decide they will help protect his secret, but one of the other students wakes up, saying he heard everything. He thinks it's ridiculous someone with no magic is at the school, so he plans to tell everyone about Mash. Mash realizes his time has finally come, and his friends wonder what he is going to do. But Mash decides it's the perfect time to have a cream puff. We see that the Adler dorm is now in the lead with the most coins, and the group was able to bully the student into keeping Mash's secret. Finn is still worried about it, and another student suddenly comes up to them, asking Mash if it's true that he can't use magic. Finn can't believe it's already been leaked, and Mash starts freaking out, but he claims that he can use it. Finn quickly takes him away, but the student warns Finn that protecting a non-magic user will also get him into trouble, saying he could get expelled. The boy demands the truth, but Finn stands up to him, saying that who he hangs out with is none of his business, but the boy is suddenly crushed into the ground as Lance appears. Finn can't believe his courage was for nothing, and we see Lemon and Barrett also appear, but Barrett seems to be in bad shape. They head back to their dorm room, and they have a feast to celebrate their victory against the Lang dorm. Since they have the most coins, Mash thinks they just need to wait for the Divine Visionary selection, but Finn is still worried. We see that Abel and Razor are also at the party, and Finn is scared of them, but Abel pulls out a deck of cards and is ready to have fun. He notes that he doesn't plan on becoming friends with them, but is just there to celebrate Razor's recovery, and Razor swears to slay anyone who dares to beat Abel in a game. Lemon tells him to chill out, offering him some tea, but he freezes up as he thanks her, and Abel reveals Razor has no experience dealing with girls. Lemon tries getting closer to him, but it just makes him cough up blood. We see that Love is also at the party, and Lemon tries to feed Mash a cream puff, wanting to show her appreciation for him. He says he can eat on his own, and the cream puff ends up falling, but Mash takes a deep breath and is able to suck it back up. The party continues, and Finn can't believe he's part of such a ridiculous group. We see an owl delivering a letter to the academy, and Razor has a moment with Mash. As thanks for inviting him to the party, he warns Mash about being targeted by Innocent Zero. He reveals that they are the worst crime syndicate in the whole realm, and they were looking for people with high magical power in the academy. He notes that Mash has a connection to whoever they are looking for, so he's sure they will return. He reveals that by using Innocent Zero's power, Abel was able to artificially gain his third magic line, but Razor warns him that genuine triple liners are even more terrifying. We see Finn out with Abel as they go to get a board game, but Finn wonders why he tagged along. Razor notes that Abel borrowed Innocent Zero's power so that he could create a world where kind people like his mother could live in peace. He thanks Mash for stopping Abel, but he thinks Mash might be able to create a world where everyone can live in peace, telling him that he's counting on him. We see the student from earlier sneaking around so he can find proof about Mash, but he's shocked when he sees Mash talking to Razor, and Abel returns, asking him what he's doing there. The boy freaks out seeing him, and he quickly runs away. The owl suddenly smashes through the window, delivering the letter to Mash, and they are shocked when they read it. The next day at the Bureau of Magic, we see Mash in an emergency inquiry regarding the concealment of his lack of magic. The official notes that God created their beautiful world, including the miracle of magic, but the existence of people like Mash threatens this miracle. The man calls Mash a bug that needs to be dealt with, but another man appears, and the official recognizes him as a divine visionary named Grants. Grants sees the potential in Mash, but notes that in their world, the rules are important to maintain order. He says that the rules are for the majority, so he tells Mash he will need to sway the majority. He throws a card down to Mash, and it turns into a candle. He notes that magic is everything in their world, so he tells Mash to light the candle without touching it, saying he needs to show them a miracle stronger than magic. The official thinks it's ridiculous, but Mash takes out his wand. The official thinks Grants gave Mash an impossible task to make him give up, but Mash gets down and starts rubbing his wand with tremendous speed. The official doesn't think it will work since the ground is made of stone, but a huge fire is created, and the flames light the candle. Mash realizes what he needs to do, and he declares that he will sway the majority. Meanwhile, we see a group of divine visionaries as they discuss Mash, thinking that it's ridiculous, and that rules must be upheld without exception. Mash thinks the meeting is over, but he suddenly gets attacked by sand. He wonders what's going on, and the group of divine visionaries arrive. The official wonders what they are doing there, so the divine visionary Ada says that it's unacceptable to allow exceptions, saying that Mash needs to be put to death. Mash is shocked hearing this, and Ada notes that it's a consensus from all the divine visionaries. The official suddenly jumps down next to Mash, but he's taken over by a dark aura, and we see that he's been taken over by Innocent Zero. They claim that Mash belongs to them, and as proof they are serious, we see a magic parasite attached to the official. Grant sees it as a declaration of war, and the bureau employee Sean freaks out seeing it, and we learn that the parasite is a dangerous creature that uses humans as its host and feeds off their mana. Grants jumps down and prepares to deal with it, but Sean warns him that it's too dangerous because it will just be transferred over to him. Grants is willing to take the risk, but we see Mash just ripping it out. Grants can't believe he just did that, and the parasite suddenly jumps into Mash's mouth. Sean can't believe he didn't listen to his warning, but Mash vomits it out, and we see that the parasite has been tied up. Sean is shocked seeing this, wondering what happened, and Mash reveals he just tied it up like a cherry stem with his tongue. Sean thinks it's ridiculous, and Mash thinks it's all over after dealing with it, but Anna says they aren't finished, and he still wants to put Mash to death. Mash digs himself into the ground and refuses to go with them, so Anna prepares to deal with him. He disappears with his sand, and instantly appears behind Mash. He's about to attack with a sand drill, but Grant stops him, saying he hasn't heard his opinion. Anna says that the rules are everything, so his opinion doesn't matter, but a sword suddenly drives them away. Mash recognizes the sword, and we see Headmaster Wahlberg arriving with Rain. Anna wonders why Wahlberg called the Divine Visionaries, saying Mash deserves to die because he can't use magic. But Wahlberg asks them to reconsider, thinking Mash might be able to help them find Innocent Zero because he appears to be interested in Mash. The Divine Visionaries consider the proposal, as Mash wonders why Wahlberg appears to be important, so Grants reveals that he's a living legend, saying he was the only mage who was able to rival Innocent Zero's powers during his youth. Grants mentions that he respects Wahlberg, because even among the Divine Visionaries, he's a force to be reckoned with. Anna explains that he can't accept the proposal, thinking the regulations exist to maintain order, so they need to follow it at all costs. But everyone is surprised, as Wahlberg bows to them, saying it's true that Mash can't use magic, but he has the ability to sway people's hearts. Wahlberg thinks that Mash might be able to change the world, as he suggests that they shouldn't treat non-magic users as inferior beings, because he considers it as unjust treatment. He reminds everyone that their values have changed throughout the years, but it takes courage to do this, because they first need to accept that they have committed injustice. Anna rejects his idea, saying he shouldn't force his opinion on others, but Rain joins him, imploring them not to kill Mash, because he has proven himself worthy of their trust. But the Visionaries think that the public will never accept him, saying Wahlberg shouldn't use his emotions to make difficult decisions. But the official reveals that he shares Wahlberg's opinion, saying they received their magical powers from God, and it's only natural for them to exclude non-magic users, because they aren't as capable. But he explains that Mash saved his life, even though he can't use magic. So the official implores them to defer his sentence, saying he's willing to accept punishment for going against regulations, but he will never change his mind. Anna accepts his decision, under the condition that Mash will act under their supervision, and prove that he's strong enough to defeat Innocent Zero, by becoming the year's Divine Visionary candidate. Anna warns him that he will die if he fails, but he isn't bothered, saying he wants peace for everyone, as he strikes the ground, causing a shockwave, and he promises to defeat Innocent Zero with his fist. Back in his dorm, Mash explains the incident to his friends, and Lance is surprised to learn that Mash can't use magic, as he recalls their battle, saying he thought that Mash was just holding back. Barrett invites everyone to walk around the town, and the next day, we see Finn waiting for his friends, as he wonders what kind of clothes they will be wearing. Barrett arrives wearing a knight's armor, because he thinks that having fun is a battle, and Mash arrives wearing his workout gear, moving around the town with his training equipment. Finn finds them weird, so he doesn't want to be seen around them, and at that moment, Lance arrives, as Finn notes that he looks normal. But we see that he has his sister on his shirt, and Finn falls into despair, realizing that he's the only normal person in the group. They change to normal clothes, and Barrett mentions that there's a famous game in the street, showing them a game where the players tickle the koala's nose to make it sneeze and launch icicles. Mash decides to give it a try, poking the koala's nose, as Barrett mentions that it's hard for beginners to hit the target. But the koala sneezes, and the icicle ends up hitting his head. He tells Mash that he's going to show him how it's done, and he pokes the koala's nose, causing it to launch an icicle which stabs Mash's head. So he uses a submission move, and they start fighting. After some time, we see that Barrett got beat up, as Lance mentions that he wants to try using a new wand, revealing that the Divine Visionary candidate exam is fast approaching. We learn that because of the Innocent Zero case, the exam is going to be held at an earlier date, but Lance thinks that this works in their favor, because they already have enough coins to participate. He knows that they will proceed to the final screening if they pass the exam, but he warns Mash that he won't go easy on him because he wants to win for his sister. They enter a shop, which is filled with magic wands, and the shopkeeper greets them, recognizing them as students of the academy. Finn decides to replace his wand, so he extends his arm, exuding his magical energy, and a wand responds to him, and the shopkeeper adds that wands are basically extensions of a person's body, so it can improve their capacity to use magic. Lance extends his hand, and a wand flies to him, impressing the shopkeeper, because he knows that the wand is special. He wonders if Mash would like to give it a try, as Finn becomes worried, knowing Mash is going to get into trouble, because he doesn't have magical power. But he decides to do it, extending his arm, and he notices a wand on the floor as the shopkeeper reveals that it's been sitting there for ages because it's so heavy that nobody can lift it. According to legend, there is elf water beneath it, and this water can be used to craft powerful wands. But the shopkeeper thinks that it's just a legend, saying nobody was able to lift the wand for 1,000 years. But Mash approaches it, and he lifts it, causing water to burst out of the ground. He decides to buy it, and the shopkeeper is overjoyed to see the elf water, thanking Mash for lifting the wand, and telling him to keep it. His friends are surprised to see this, but Lance decides not to buy a wand from the store. They leave the shop, and they see Tom and Lemon approaching them. They have fun together, and at the end of the day, we see that they're tired, but they realize that they're enjoying their lives. Mash admits that he had fun, revealing that he never went out with his friends before, and he wants to do it again. After a few days, Mash counts their gold coins, and Lance thinks that they're ready for the exam, which is about to take place. But Mash reveals that he wants to go home before the exam, and we learn that he told Rain about this, but he thinks that Mash is out of his mind. Meanwhile, we see Otto dining with the prefect of the Orca dorm, Makarin, thinking Wahlberg is becoming senile, so he thinks that it's his duty to step up and stop disturbances before they arise. He orders Makarin to stop Mash from participating in the exam, but he explains that the task doesn't interest him, saying all he cares about is excitement. Otto tells him that Mash defeated Abel, but he doesn't care, thinking there's nothing special about Abel. But Otto reveals that Mash won without magic, causing Makarin to become surprised, and Otto orders him to go wild, promising to clean up after he's done. He leaves the table, and he plays the piano, saying spring has arrived, but everyone thinks he's being creepy. Mash returns home, and Bernadette is overjoyed to see him. His friends join him, and Bernadette is surprised to see them, realizing that Mash has made friends. Barrett mentions that they're more than just his friends, saying he's Mash's rival, and Lemon tells Bernadette that she's going to marry Mash, causing him to become even more surprised. Barrett gives him herbal tea, and Lance tells him that he also has something for him, but we see that it's his sister's merchandise. They run around the house, as Bernadette realizes that they're all unique, thinking Finn is struggling to keep up with them. But he's happy to see that Mash has friends, revealing that he was afraid that Mash wouldn't play well with others, because he never exposed him to the outside world. Meanwhile, Makarin and his men make their way to Mash, but swords suddenly fall from the sky. They're able to dodge it, and Makarin sees a man approaching. He wonders if the man is Mash's bodyguard, but we see that it's Rain, saying he was just passing by. Makarin recognizes him, preparing to fight him, while Mash and his friends continue to play in his house, completely unaware of the situation. We learn that in the Magic Academy, the dorms are supervised by prefects, who possess the skills needed to become a divine visionary. Makarin is one of them, and we learn that a few years ago, he was able to dominate a tournament held for the middle school division, despite being younger than the other competitors. He's excited to fight against Rain, knowing he's a divine visionary, so Makarin thinks that their fight is going to be interesting. He summons a piano, and he plays his favorite piece, but Rain just stares at him, seeing him as a weirdo. Makarin reveals that despite being a powerful mage, he doesn't strive to become a divine visionary, thinking it's just a title, and all he really wants is to become stronger. He prepares for battle, thinking he can defeat Rain, because all he really cares about is his position. He launches a barrage of swords, and Makarin uses his music to fight back. But we cut to Mash and his friends, as they play a board game together. During Barrett's turn, he ends up in a tile, which mentions that he was deceived by a beautiful lady, causing him to lose all of his money. Lemon rolls the dice, and she goes to jail because she restrained her love interest like a stalker, so she's forced to skip hundreds of turns. Lance thinks the game is dangerous because it could predict their future, and he ends up in a tile, which mentions that his little sister has a boyfriend, so he needs to return to the start, causing him to become devastated. Finn returns a lost item to the police, allowing him to earn money, but Mash ends up getting executed because the public discovered that he can't use magic. Everyone loses the game, and they aren't happy with the result, but Finn thinks about Burndead, thinking he'll be happy because Mash is having fun with his friends. We return to Makarin as his battle with Rain continues. Makarin manages to defend himself, and he counters with his Howling Sounds spell, which immobilizes Rain and surrounds him with musical symbols. Makarin explains that they will explode if Rain casts a spell, saying he's looking for excitement because it makes life worth living. He thinks that Rain's life is boring because he keeps meddling in other people's business, and Makarin has completely lost interest in him, telling him to step aside so that he can see Mash. But Rain recalls that Mash wants to become a divine visionary even without magic, to change the perception of the world, and he admires Mash's resolve as he begins to unleash his true power. We see Sean talking to Wahlberg, thinking Rain will struggle against Makarin, but Wahlberg isn't bothered, saying Rain always takes care of others, and he asks Sean what he knows about magical marks. So he mentions that mages with more marks have greater magical power, and Wahlberg affirms this, saying two-liners have immense potential, but there are extremely rare cases where a mage has 3 lines. He explains that the talent of two-liners are recognized by magic itself, but they're nothing compared to triple-liners, who are said to be chosen by the gods. He adds that the youngest mage to ever acquire 3 lines is Rain, and we see Makarin crying tears of joy as Rain reveals his 3rd line, saying he wants to help Mash achieve his goal. Mash and his friends continue to play the game, but he steps on the same tile, and he ends up dying. He leaves the house, saying he will get fresh air, and his friends think he's depressed because the whole world is against him. But we see Mash dashing through the forest, and we learn that he just wants to eat his giant cream puff in secret. He notices a commotion, and he sees Rain fighting against Makarin, who is impressed that Rain was able to acquire his 3rd line. But Makarin thinks that he has already won, because his musical symbols will explode the moment Rain casts a spell. Rain knows that Ada ordered him to target Mash, because he's never involved in school affairs, but he suddenly took interest in Mash. Rain tells him that Mash can't use magic, so the world wants him dead, saying an ordinary person would question his existence and blame society. But Rain explains that Mash is different because he's willing to fight against his own destiny. But Makarin says he doesn't care, and his men note that he's confident, thinking he isn't being cocky because they know how powerful he is. We learn that in the previous year, he distributed all of his gold coins to the dorm because he wasn't interested in becoming a divine visionary, but he ended up setting a record by taking 10 gold coins from the other students. Makarin's men think that Rain can't do anything because the notes around him will destroy him if he makes a move, and Makarin imagines himself in the middle of a performance, thinking it's time for the finale. His men pull out their instruments, and they help him unleash a powerful spell, which is about to hit Rain. Makarin thinks the fight is over, but we cut to Sean, as he wonders why triple-liners are considered special. So Wahlberg reveals that they possess immense magical power, and they're able to awaken a wand's true form, allowing them to wield the power of a god. We return to Rain, as he releases a powerful shockwave, allowing him to overpower Makarin's magic, and he summons Ares, transforming his wand into a trident. A dark cloud surrounds him as he unleashes his ultimate spell, and Makarin tries to block it with a barrier, but it destroys everything in its path. Mash thanks Rain for his help, but he claims that he was just fighting rabbits in the forest, reminding Mash that the selection exam is fast approaching. He tells Mash that it's going to be difficult, saying he doesn't want Mash to fail, because he wants to see him achieve his goal. Meanwhile, we see that Makarin was able to survive, but he's injured, and his men are unconscious. He notes that Rain's magic is overwhelming, but he thinks that he has the power to match it, revealing that he was thinking about the safety of his men, so he decided to use his barrier instead of fighting back. Back in the dorm, Mash decides to give Finn and Barrett 3 gold coins so that they can participate in the selection exam. But Finn isn't happy about this, thinking he isn't ready for it, and Barrett can't sleep because he's incredibly nervous, thinking about everything he needs to bring for the exam. Lance is thinking about his sister, telling her to wait for him, and we see Mash with Bernadette, who reveals that he has heard the news, knowing Mash is in trouble. He blames himself for everything, thinking he has failed as a father, but Mash tells him that he's lucky to have him, saying he's happy with his life, and he thanks Bernadette for always looking after him. The next day, everyone prepares for the exam, and we learn that there are 3 stages before a person can become a divine visionary. The first stage is collecting enough coins, and the second and third stages are the 2 parts of the exam. 5 gold coins are needed to participate, but because of Innocent Zero's intervention, the exam has been pushed forward, and the requirement has been adjusted to 3 gold coins. We see that Makarin is one of the candidates, and Wahlberg sees him as a threat, thinking Mash will struggle against him. Mash makes his way to the arena, but Otto blocks his path, telling him that his existence will never be acknowledged by the world. But Mash flexes his muscles, and he imagines that they're talking to him, telling him not to give up. This causes him to feel better, recognizing them as his friends, and he's determined to do his best. He walks past Otto, and he enters the arena, but everyone recognizes him as the boy who can't use magic, so they think that he doesn't deserve to be there, telling him to go home. One of the students tell the officials to disqualify Mash, thinking he might ruin the image of divine visionaries, and Finn recalls that Mash will die if he fails the exam, thinking he's under incredible pressure. So Finn thinks about encouraging him, but he realizes that Mash is fine, and he just wants a cream puff. The announcer reveals that there are 12 candidates for Divine Visionary, and she explains that for the first part of the exam, they need to find a hidden key to escape. Finn thinks it's going to be easy, but she reveals that Minotaurs will be chasing them down, causing him to panic as he realizes that his life is on the line. The announcer explains that the audience can watch the events using the mirrors, and the exam begins as the candidates are transported to a field. Finn wants to go home, thinking he's doomed, and a Minotaur approaches one of the candidates. The boy tries to defend himself, but his spell has no effect, and we learn that the Minotaurs are completely immune to magic. He ends up dying, and he returns to the arena as the announcer mentions that he has been eliminated. She explains that the candidates don't stand a chance against the Minotaurs, saying the purpose of the test is to determine how well they respond to situations where they're forced to retreat. But Mash fights one head-on, surprising everyone in the arena because it appears to be in pain and it falls to its knees. They think he's crazy for fighting such a monster, but it gets back up as the announcer explains that the Minotaurs can't be killed because they aren't living creatures and they have the ability to heal instantly. So Mash decides to run away, realizing he can't defeat it, as another student named Max casts a spell, causing him to shrink and allowing him to escape. Max mentions that Minotaurs have bad eyesight, but they're extremely sensitive to sound, and he uses his spell to return them to their original size, as he reveals that his magic allows him to manipulate size. Mash thanks him for his help, and he suggests forming an alliance, saying they can pass the exam together. Mash agrees to this, so they start looking for a key, and Max suggests following a Minotaur, thinking it would be guarding it. They try to sneak around, and Mash loses his footing, but he somehow manages to maintain his balance. They're able to avoid the Minotaur, and they see a giant balloon, as Max speculates that it must contain a key. They see a device attached to it, thinking they need to use it to inflate the balloon until it bursts, but as Mash touches it, it makes a loud noise, so the Minotaur chases them away. They're able to escape, and Max thinks they should use other methods to destroy the balloon. Mash suggests tearing it open, but as he holds it, it makes a strange noise, so they are forced to run away once again. They decide to destroy the device, but the key is still in the balloon, so Max thinks it must be floating inside. He realizes that they need to use magic to inflate the balloon, wondering how they should do it, and Mash sees an opening, so he comes up with an idea. Max uses his magic to make the balloon bigger, but everyone thinks he's an idiot, because a larger balloon is harder to destroy. The announcer explains that Mash can't enter the balloon because it's going to make a sound, but he approaches it, and he does a headstand, as everyone realizes that he's going to breakdance. He starts spinning his body with ridiculous speed, and everyone is stunned, as he forms a tornado, forcing air into the balloon and causing it to explode. Mash and Max are able to obtain the key, and we cut to Lance, as he uses his gravity spell to fill the balloon with air, allowing him to pass the test. We see that the other candidates have also passed, including Barrett, who sees Finn hiding, realizing that he still hasn't acquired a key. So Barrett decides to help him, but he realizes that Barrett's head is bleeding, wondering what happened to him. We return to Mash, as he gives the key to Max, saying he should take it. He realizes that Mash is a great person, telling him that he should have it, and Max points him to the exit, saying he already knows how to acquire the next key on his own. He reveals that he wants to help Mash, explaining that he's only doing his job as a senior, so Mash runs to the exit, thanking him for his help. But Max suddenly gets attacked, as a student named Capacho appears. We return to the arena, as Mash joins the other candidates. He realizes that Barrett and Finn have also passed the test, and Lance wonders how he destroyed the balloon without magic. So he explains that he had help, but he wonders why Max gave him the key, thinking he must have his own reasons. At that moment, Max joins them in the arena, and everyone thinks he made it. But he suddenly collapses, as the announcer reveals that Capacho will be taking the final spot. Everyone wonders why he harmed Max, and he mentions that he doesn't need weaklings, so he thinks he can do anything to them. But Mash threatens to punch him, telling him to stop, and Finn recognizes Capacho as the top student. A girl gives him a drink, so he takes the cup, and he approaches Mash, throwing it in his face. But Mash catches it with his cup, and he uses it to make a protein shake. He drinks it, saying protein timing is important for his muscles, and he tells Capacho not to call people weaklings, as he claims that he has never met a person stronger than him. He tries to explain that strength is difficult to define, but he ends up getting confused, because he doesn't know the meaning of strength. Capacho prepares to take him on, but the announcer interrupts them, telling them to stop fighting. They move on to the next part of the exam, as 3 magic crystals appear, dividing the candidates into teams. The announcer explains that they will be having a team battle, saying each candidate will get 1 crystal, which they need to defend, because a team will be eliminated if they run out of crystals. Mash doesn't understand the explanation, so Barrett tells him that they just need to smash the crystals of the opposing teams. But Finn is worried, because Lance isn't in their team, so he wonders what they should do. The candidates' crystals are distributed, as the announcer informs them that it's fragile, so it needs to be handled with care. Finn thinks he isn't strong enough to defend his crystal, but he notes that Mash and Barrett are his teammates, thinking he can count on them. But they both instantly break their crystals, because it's too slippery, and Finn thinks their team is doomed, but Barrett assures him that they will protect his crystal. The exam begins, and everyone is sent to a labyrinth, but Finn realizes that he's alone, so he falls into despair, thinking they're going to lose. We learn about the 13 ancient wands in the magic realm, which are known as the Master Canes. They only choose mages with extraordinary talent, and grant them blessings which are out of this world, making them a force to be reckoned with. We return to the exam, as Finn continues to despair, and his teammates decide to look for him, thinking he's in trouble. He knows that the team is relying on him, because they have 1 crystal left, so he needs to guard it with his life. But at that moment, he hears a commotion, and he sees Capacho attacking another candidate, wondering why there's a knife in his shoulder. He starts moving it, causing his opponent to suffer, as he mentions that talent isn't evenly distributed, so talentless mages need to know their place. He crushes the boy's crystal, as Finn notes that he's dangerous, so he wants to avoid him at all costs. Finn tries to hide, using his magic to conceal his presence, and he thinks he was able to avoid Capacho, but he suddenly appears behind Finn, summoning a goddess as he prepares to attack. Finn freaks out, knowing he's no match for Capacho, but he stops as he recognizes Finn, saying he's an average student, so Capacho wonders how he became a candidate. He orders Finn to hand over his crystal, but he refuses, knowing Mash is going to die if he fails the exam. So Finn prepares to fight, but he suddenly starts bleeding, as Capacho asks him what he's trying to do, telling him not to resist, because he doesn't stand a chance. We cut to Makarin, as he notes that there are 3 interesting candidates in the exam. He recognizes Lance as the top transfer student, and Mash as the boy who can't use magic. But he thinks that Capacho stands out, because he's the top student, knowing he's a prodigy chosen by a Master Cane. So Makarin thinks he's the most talented mage in the academy, and he feels grateful, because he was given the chance to meet Capacho before he reaches his full potential. We return to Finn, as he pretends to cast a spell, causing Capacho to become distracted, but he realizes that nothing happened, and Finn starts running away. So Carpaccio chases after him, but he uses his magic, causing Carpaccio to be teleported away as he realizes that he's switched places with the candidate he defeated. Finn continues to run away, thinking he was able to escape, but his leg starts bleeding and he falls to the ground as Carpaccio catches up to him. He starts torturing Finn as he proceeds to stab himself, transferring the damage to Finn. But he refuses to give up, saying he knows he's a loser, but he will never abandon his friends, and he tries to fight back. But he misses, and Carpaccio easily defeats him, threatening to kill him. Everyone thinks they're about to witness a murder, but Mash suddenly arrives, smashing Carpaccio against the wall. Mash thanks Finn for protecting the crystal, and he apologizes for being late, but his head starts bleeding as Carpaccio recovers, saying he can't feel pain because his wand absorbs it for him. Mash hits him, but the damage is reflected, as Carpaccio explains that it's useless because his magic transfers damage. He stabs himself, but his wound heals, and Mash takes damage as he explains that he received the blessing of a Master Cane the moment he was born, and its powers are always active, so he has never experienced pain. He adds that he wants to know what it feels like, but he thinks that Mash is no match for him, and he starts stabbing himself, causing Mash to bleed. But he charges in, and he starts attacking Carpaccio, but the damage is being reflected, and Finn thinks he has no chance. Carpaccio thinks that a person's destiny is determined by the abilities they're born with, and since Mash can't use magic, he should just give up and accept his fate. Carpaccio mentions that Finn is nothing like his brother, because he has no talent whatsoever, saying he doesn't deserve to be a candidate. Mash tells Carpaccio that he has a point, saying Finn is weak, but he had the courage to defend the crystal, despite knowing that he's no match for Carpaccio, so Mash won't allow him to look down on Finn. Mash launches a relentless assault, enduring the force of his blows, as he thinks about pushing Carpaccio's healing powers past its limit. Carpaccio is disappointed in him, thinking his tactic will never work, but he's surprised to see a crack on the goddess, as he realizes that it's struggling to absorb the damage. Mash continues his beatdown, and he manages to shatter the mask of the goddess, as Carpaccio notes that this has never happened before. Mash tells him that he doesn't stand a chance, asking him if he has the courage to fight, and he becomes excited, realizing that he has finally found a worthy opponent. The goddess goes berserk, because it wants to protect him, seeing Mash as a threat. So it tries to kill him, launching countless needles, but he manages to dodge all of them. Carpaccio tries to stop him, stabbing him repeatedly, but he isn't slowing down, and he reveals his iron wand, using his hands to sculpt it, and he transforms it into a racket. He launches a ball with ridiculous strength, using it to target the opening on the goddess's armor. It continues to launch needles at him, but he manages to dodge all of them, and everyone is surprised, as he continues to attack the goddess while evading the needles. The ball continues to crash into the goddess, and its head begins to crack, unable to withstand the punishment. Mash leaps into the air, hitting the ball with all his might, and it pierces through the goddess, causing it to explode. Carpaccio can't believe what's happening, and Mash slams the racket into his head, knocking him out. Everyone is stunned, because they know that Carpaccio is an extremely powerful mage, but Mash defeated him without magic. Mash thanks Finn for defending the crystal, saying he still has a chance to enjoy life because of him, and Finn is happy to hear this. Carpaccio regains consciousness, and this is his first time experiencing pain, realizing that it's a terrifying experience. He thinks about the suffering Finn endured, wondering how he was able to withstand it. So Carpaccio realizes that he was wrong, because in terms of inner strength, he's no match for Finn. We see Carpaccio's teammates as they prepare to fight against Makarin, but he uses his sense of hearing, and he tells them that they're weak. He reveals that he can assess their powers by listening to their pitch, saying they're nothing compared to the best mages he encountered, so he advises them to surrender their crystals. But they remind him that it's 2 against 1, and they combine their powers, thinking they can defeat him. But he uses a basic spell, and he easily overpowers them, so they summon their shields, trying to defend with everything they have. But he easily breaks through their defenses, blowing them away. They wonder how a student can be so powerful, and he tells them that his magic is on another level as he crushes their crystals. With Carpaccio's team eliminated, the announcer reveals that the exam is over and the candidates return to the arena. Barrett celebrates with Mash, calling him the MVP of the qualifying round, but he doesn't care, saying he just wants a cream puff. They realize that the arena has fallen silent, as Wahlberg notes that Mash's greatest trial is about to begin, because he's going to be fighting against Makarin. Makarin becomes excited, saying he's looking forward to their fight, and Mash touches his chest, as he mentions that his muscles are telling him to be careful. The divine visionary Caldo approaches Wahlberg, telling him that Mash is in trouble, as he mentions that Rain wouldn't be a divine visionary if he went up against Makarin during his exam. Caldo reveals that it's his duty to examine the talent of each individual, and he believes that Makarin is the most talented candidate in the arena. He knows that Wahlberg wants Mash to win, but he thinks Mash doesn't stand a chance because Makarin is too powerful for him. There's a boy that wants Mash to lose, so he begs Makarin to win the fight, saying he's willing to put laxatives in Mash's drink. But Makarin blows him away, threatening to kill him if he ruins the fun, and he sees Ada in the room, telling him not to interfere. So the boy realizes that Makarin is serious about the match, because he's willing to do anything to ensure that the fight is going to be fair. We cut to Mash, as he reveals that he started lifting, because Bernadette ordered him to do it, and he recalls that he hated the feeling, but he was able to make excellent progress. He explains that his life's purpose is to lift the heaviest weights, thinking the human body was made to pump iron, but Finn finds him weird, because he isn't talking to anyone. Lemon starts her monologue, as she reveals that she continues to be an emotional burden because she's in love with Mash. Barrett suddenly approaches her, saying he can be her lover, but she rejects him, causing him to become devastated. But Finn wonders what's happening, as he notes that his friends are weird. Mash realizes it's time for his protein shake, so he drinks it, as he explains that his muscles need nutrients to grow. Caldo joins them, and Mash remembers him as one of the divine visionaries who bullied him. Caldo reveals that he's interested in Mash, asking him if he wants to play a game before his fight with Makarin, but he declines, saying he needs time to rest. But Caldo explains that he's the head of the Magic Talent Administration, so he needs to assess Mash's capabilities, saying Mash won't become a divine visionary unless he acknowledges him. So Mash agrees to play with Caldo, and he tells Mash that he will be exempted from the exam if he manages to win. Caldo explains the rules of the game, saying the players must not look at the direction where their opponent is pointing, and Mash accepts his challenge, as he starts pointing everywhere. But Caldo uses his magic, creating a circle around Mash, as he explains that Mash needs to stay in the circle until the game ends. Caldo explains that he must survive for 3 rounds, saying he will win if he doesn't face the wrong direction for 3 seconds after the round begins. He agrees to this, so they begin the first round, as Caldo points upwards. So he looks down, but a magic arrow suddenly appears, and it's about to hit his forehead, but he manages to dodge it without looking up. They proceed to the second round, and Caldo points to his sides, as he summons magical rings to attack Mash. His friends note that it's impossible to dodge them, but he manages to deflect them with his fists. Caldo pulls out his magic sword, as he explains that it's enchanted with dark flames, which will consume anything it touches, so Mash won't be able to deflect it. Finn tells him it's too dangerous, but he doesn't seem to care, and the final round begins, as Caldo points at 3 directions. Mash's friends realize that he's going to lose unless he looks down, and Caldo charges with his sword, launching a combination of attacks, but Mash manages to dodge all of them. Caldo is about to hit his head, but he anchors his feet to the ground, and he jumps away, taking the entire circle with him as he dodges while keeping his head down. The round is about to end, but a bird suddenly takes his cream puff, forcing him to look to his side, and he realizes that he screwed up, but Caldo tells him that it doesn't count, saying the result is a draw. Caldo walks away, and we learn that he hesitated when he attacked Mash because he was planning to block the sword with his head. So Caldo thinks he's crazy, wondering why he's so determined to become a divine visionary, because the title isn't worth dying for. But Caldo finally acknowledges his talent, hoping he will achieve his full potential. After some time, the announcer reveals that it's time for the final exam, and she explains that the candidates are going to fight until one of them collapses. For the first match, Mash is going to fight against Makarin, and Finn wants Mash to win because he's fighting for his future. Wahlberg notes that Makarin is one of the most talented mages in history, so he knows that Mash is in trouble. Makarin tells him that he's going to lose, and the announcer is about to begin the match, but he takes out a cream puff, saying he needs to replenish calories before his workout. Makarin takes his fried shrimp, and he repeatedly dips it into his sauce, as he explains that it was made to eat the sauce. Everyone realizes that he's a weirdo, and Barrett thinks he's a threat, as he recalls that the craziest mages are usually the most powerful. Makarin unleashes his power, creating a pillar of light, and everyone's surprised to see this, knowing his power is equal to the divine visionaries. Mash charges in, but Makarin fires an energy ball, as Mash's friends think he'll be able to deflect it, because it's just a basic spell. But as he tries to stop it, he realizes that it's too heavy for him, and he gets pushed back, causing an explosion, as everyone thinks that he crashed into the wall. But they realize that he disappeared, and he suddenly clings to Makarin, surprising everyone, as he uses his ridiculously powerful legs to jump to the sky. He uses his spine magic to attack, as he slams Makarin into the ground with tremendous force. Everyone feels the impact, thinking Makarin is done for, and Barrett wonders how Mash was able to escape the energy ball. So Finn reveals that he ran backwards, when he realized that he couldn't deflect it, allowing him to escape before it hit the wall. Barrett thinks this is ridiculous, thinking Mash's skills don't belong in the Magic Academy, but he decides not to think about it. As the dust clears, everyone's surprised to see that Makarin isn't injured, wondering how this is possible, and Caldo notes that he created a sound cushion before he hit the ground, allowing him to survive the impact. The audience is amazed by Mash's move, thinking he can use magic, but Caldo wonders why they aren't calling him out, knowing he didn't use a spell. Makarin mentions that he wants to enjoy the fight, and he starts launching energy balls, as Mash runs around, evading all of them. He appears behind Makarin, preparing to punch him, but he manages to react in time, pointing his wand at Mash's head. Barrett thinks Makarin is going to fire an energy ball, but he stops, saying he knows that Mash is holding back because he's trying to protect something. So he reveals that he has a cream puff, and Makarin mentions that he wants Mash to fight with everything he has, saying he should set it aside. So he surrenders it, wondering if Makarin is doing this because of his principles, but he reveals that he just wants to have fun. The crowd goes wild, but Mash's friends note that the moment was completely useless, and Lance notes that Mash and Makarin are still holding back because they're still testing each other's abilities. Caldo knows about Makarin's ultimate spell, knowing it will give him the advantage, as Caldo notes that the fight will end when he activates it. They continue the fight, as Makarin tells Mash to show him what he's capable of. Makarin uses a spell to create a magical fist, and he launches it at Mash, who tries to stop it, but it passes through his body and destroys his eardrums, as Makarin reveals that his magic can't be stopped by physical attacks, saying Mash is at a disadvantage. He proceeds to assault Mash with the same spell, pushing him back, as everyone notes that the fight is one-sided. He realizes that he can't block the spell, because he can feel the damage inside his body, and Makarin mentions that he's disappointed, saying he isn't enjoying their battle. He summons an orchestra, causing a ring of light to appear, as countless instruments appear from the ground, surrounding Mash, and Makarin tells him that it's time to end the fight. The ground starts shaking, as the instruments play simultaneously, causing the ground to shatter, and everyone thinks Mash has been defeated, calling Makarin a genius. Caldo notes that he didn't even have to use his full power, but as the dust clears, he realizes that Mash is gone, and he appears below Makarin, pulling him into the ground. Mash emerges to the surface, and everyone is stunned, wondering how he was able to survive the orchestra. Finn reveals that he saw everything, and we learn that Mash dug into the ground before the spell hit him, allowing him to escape from the sound waves. But Finn knows that it's ridiculous, wondering how Mash was able to move faster than the speed of sound. He uses his quadriceps magic, kicking Makarin with incredible force, and everyone is amazed, thinking the fight is over. But he continues to assault Makarin, pummeling him while he's down, and everyone wonders why he's doing this, thinking it's extremely brutal. But Caldo knows that he's making the right move, because Makarin hasn't been defeated yet. He mentions that he's finally enjoying the battle, forcing Mash to retreat, as he mentions that he will fight in his true form. He uses his metamorphosis spell, surrounding him with magical energy as his body begins to transform, and a bright flash of light covers the arena as Makarin transforms into a kid. He mentions that Mash forced him to reveal his true form, and everyone is amazed to see this, but Mash doesn't care, thinking he looks ridiculous. We cut to Grants as he wonders how Mash is doing in the arena. Sean suddenly enters his room, telling him that Innocent Zero is on the move as he recalls that Mash is the target. So he tells Sean to call security, saying they will need Otta and Caldo to buy time for them. He wonders who's leading the group, but Sean reveals it's Innocent Zero himself, so Grants realizes that everyone's in trouble. We return to the arena as Makarin reveals that he can unleash his true power in his current form. He snaps his finger and he suddenly appears beside Mash, causing him to freak out. Everyone thinks that Makarin teleported and he's about to explain his powers, but Mash tries to punch him, so he snaps his finger again and he suddenly disappears. Mash realizes that he's already far away and he explains that his powers have expanded as he attacks Mash in an instant, revealing that he has become sound itself, and he continues moving around as he repeatedly snaps his finger. Caldo notes that he's moving at the speed of sound, knowing Mash will struggle to catch him, and he proceeds to attack Mash with a devastating combo, causing him to crash to the ground. But he gets back up, refusing to give up, so Makarin moves at the speed of sound, preparing to land the finishing blow, but Mash manages to dodge it, surprising everyone. He appears behind Makarin, who wonders how he did it, but Caldo knows what happened, explaining that sound travels faster through a solid surface. So Mash touched the wall, allowing him to feel the sound before the attack hit him, and he used his incredible reflexes to evade. He prepares to strike Makarin, who realizes that his fingers are covered in sauce, so he can't make a sound with it. Mash hits him with a powerful attack, but Lance knows that it won't be enough to defeat him, and he gets back up, telling Mash that he's a worthy opponent. So he decides to unleash his ultimate spell, the Death Gong, creating a pillar of light as he summons a magical bell. He explains that anyone who hears it will lose consciousness, and it will ring in 1 minute, saying it will affect everyone within 2 kilometers. He mentions that the only way to stop it is to destroy his wand, but Mash's friends know this won't be easy because Makarin is faster than him. Barrett wonders if they're going to be affected, but Lance explains that they're safe, saying it will only affect Mash. Lance knows that Mash is in trouble because he was only able to hit Makarin while he was on the offensive, so Mash can't use the same tactic to catch him. He starts running away as Mash pursues him, trying to stop him before he activates his spell. But Mash struggles to keep up with him because he's moving too fast. He mentions that Mash has a few seconds left, so his friends become worried, thinking he's going to lose. The bell lights up as it's about to be activated, but Mash is still struggling to catch Makarin, and he ends up crashing to the ground. Makarin tells him that he has 10 seconds left, but he suddenly grabs the arena floor, and he lifts it with incredible strength, causing a massive slab of concrete to fall on Makarin. Mash charges in, as the spectators note that he's trying to prevent Makarin from escaping by forcing him to move sideways. He observes Mash's movements, and he decides to move to the right, thinking Mash won't be able to catch him. But he suddenly kicks away, allowing him to keep up with Makarin's speed, but he thinks that Mash will never catch him because he already gained enough distance. But Mash stops him with his pinky, pulling him back and causing him to drop his wand. Mash shatters it with his hand, and the bell disappears, impressing everyone as Makarin mentions that he's amazing because he can defeat the best mages without magic. Makarin accepts defeat, and everyone celebrates, but Otta isn't happy with the result. However, everyone suddenly experiences a tremor, causing them to panic as the sky shatters, allowing a black dragon to enter the arena. We see a mysterious man riding it, and Wahlberg recognizes him as Innocent Zero. He uses his magic to stop time, preventing everyone from moving as he makes his way to Mash, saying he's been looking forward to meeting him. He's happy to learn that Mash is still alive, calling him his son, and Innocent Zero reveals that he needs to absorb Mash to achieve his complete form. But Wahlberg stops him, and we learn that he can move and stop time, saying he won't let him take Mash without a fight. He explains that since he's the headmaster of the academy, he will protect the students with his life. Innocent Zero's companion prepares to attack, but Wahlberg glares at him, and he imagines himself getting sliced in half, so he panics, wondering what just happened. Wahlberg laughs at him, telling him to back off, and he becomes intimidated, but Innocent Zero tells Wahlberg not to bully his friends. Wahlberg asks him about his goal, and he reveals that he wants to become a perfect human, but Wahlberg wonders why he's willing to sacrifice countless lives to achieve this, telling him that his actions have caused everyone to suffer. But he doesn't care, thinking everyone was made to serve him, and he thinks that Mash was created to be absorbed by him, so he's going to take him away. Wahlberg finds this ridiculous, saying Mash is destined to become the beacon of hope for the world, so he won't allow Innocent Zero to absorb Mash. He reveals his magical lines as he prepares to fight Innocent Zero, who unleashes an ominous aura, saying they haven't fought in a long time. Wahlberg summons his wand Uranus, while Innocent Zero calls Kronos, and they're about to unleash their powers. But Wahlberg is surprised, as Innocent Zero summons demons, saying he just needs to absorb Mash, so he doesn't care what happens to the other people in the arena. But Wahlberg uses his magic, allowing the candidates and divine visionaries to move, and he tells them to deal with the demons, while he fights against Innocent Zero. So Barrett and Lance use their magic, allowing them to destroy the demons, but they have no idea what's happening, thinking they just need to fight for their lives. Caldo charges in, trying to stab a demon, but it manages to stop his sword, so he unleashes his dark flames, and he proceeds to slaughter the demons. He's about to get overwhelmed, but Otto protects him with his sand magic, and he mentions that the demons have the power equivalent of a double liner. He tells Caldo to protect Wahlberg, but more demons appear, blocking their path, and we see that Lance and Barrett are surrounded, but they continue to fight on. Caldo launches his flames, burning the demons blocking his path, and Otto fights the demons, summoning sand spikes to impale them. Innocent Zero wonders if Wahlberg's students will be able to defeat the demons, but Wahlberg tells him to focus on their fight, as he teleports them away. We see them floating in the sky, as Wahlberg mentions that they will be able to fight without interruptions. Barrett and Lance continue to struggle against the demons, but they realize that a tower is emerging from the ground, and they see Celt summoning an enormous ball of spikes, thinking he's planning to kill everyone. Giant demons appear, as everyone realizes that the demons are trying to kill them, but they're completely ignoring Mash, so Makarin thinks they created a trap to capture him. Barrett wonders how Makarin came to that conclusion, so he mentions that it's just a woman's intuition, and Barrett realizes that he's a woman at heart. Barrett tells Mash to stop Cell, because the demons are completely ignoring him, so Mash leaves the arena and rushes to the tower. Cell thinks that Mash won't be able to reach him, since he's on top of the tower, but he becomes surprised, as Mash is able to destroy the tower, bringing him to the ground. He remembers Mash, explaining that it's useless to destroy the tower, because his magic won't disappear unless he's defeated. But Mash doesn't recognize him, causing him to become surprised, and Mash digs through his memories, but he still has no memory of him. Back in the arena, everyone continues to fight the demons, but Barrett sees a baby crying, so he becomes confused. But the baby suddenly uses a spell, transforming him into an infant, and the baby returns to his adult form, revealing that he's a criminal named Sitter. He explains that his magic allows him to turn targets into infants, thinking Barrett is defenseless as a baby. He doesn't believe Sitter, trying to use his magic, but he realizes that he can't, so he starts running away. He knows he's in trouble, so he approaches Lance, trying to ask for help, but he has no idea what Barrett is saying, because he lost his ability to speak clearly. Sitter tries to attack them, but Lance dodges his spell, realizing that he turned Barrett into a baby. The demons try to attack Lance, but he uses his gravity spell to take them out, realizing that he needs to protect Barrett during the fight. He continues fighting, but he suddenly realizes that Barrett is gone, because he was distracted by a toy. Lance rushes to his side, but he ends up getting hit by Sitter's spell, and also becomes a baby. He starts arguing with Barrett, and they dodge the demons' attacks, as they realize that their bodies are reacting to the toy. Sitter thinks they're done for, because they have lost their magical powers, so he thinks about bullying them, ordering the demons to attack. But Lance uses his gravity spell, smashing them to the ground, as Sitter realizes that Lance is still powerful as an infant. Barrett notes that he was able to compensate for his lack of magical power by concentrating his magic on a smaller area, and Barrett is impressed, realizing that he's a genius. They return to their original forms, but Lance tells Barrett not to let his guard down, because the battle is far from over. Meanwhile, we see Grant and Sean making their way to the arena, as Sean wonders how Wahlberg knows Innocent Zero. So Grant reveals that the magic realm was shaped by a man named Adam, who is considered as the most powerful mage in history, and Wahlberg and Innocent Zero were his best students. Their powers are said to be equal, but Grant mentions that Innocent Zero chose to attack them, thinking he must have a plan. Grant knows that Wahlberg is their only chance of defeating Innocent Zero, thinking they're doomed if he ends up losing. We return to Innocent Zero as he removes his hood, revealing that he has no face. Wahlberg is surprised to see this, asking him if he has abandoned his humanity, but he becomes offended, thinking Wahlberg sees him as a monster. He creates his face, telling Wahlberg that he's still human, and he reveals his goals, saying he wants to absorb MASH and kill Wahlberg. He uses his Living Dead spell, creating a magical clock, which starts spinning with ridiculous speed, and a coffin appears, as Wahlberg realizes that he's using a forbidden spell. But we cut to Barrett, as he wonders how MASH is going to defeat Cell, because he was only able to do it with Abel's help during their last fight. But he's fighting Cell alone, so Barrett becomes worried, thinking he's in trouble. Cell launches countless projectiles, but he's surprised to see that MASH is able to dodge all of them, realizing that he's running on top of them. Cell attacks MASH with everything he has, but MASH still manages to avoid them, and he closes the distance, delivering a devastating blow. Cell is knocked down, wondering how MASH was able to dodge his magic, as he recalls how MASH struggled during their last encounter. But MASH explains that he remembers Cell's magic, so he already knows how to counter it. We learn that Adam introduced magic to the world, and he created the Bureau of Magic, making him the most influential mage of all time. During his later years, he focused on providing social assistance to those who can't use magic, and he taught his students to protect the weak, calling it the responsibility of a powerful mage. We return to Wahlberg as the chain surrounding the coffin breaks, and it slowly starts to open. Wahlberg gets a glimpse of a man's face, and he is shocked, as the coffin completely opens, revealing that it's Adam. Innocent Zero explains that his magic allows him to bring people back from the dead, saying he was able to turn Adam into his mindless slave. Wahlberg condemns his action, but a mage named Necros prepares to fight him, revealing that he specializes in manipulating bodies. Wahlberg prepares to attack, but Necros uses Adam's body, reminding Wahlberg that Adam is the greatest mage of all time. He unleashes a dark energy beam, and Wahlberg struggles to defend himself, as Innocent Zero reminds him that Adam died because of old age. But his spell allowed him to summon Adam in his prime, thinking Wahlberg doesn't stand a chance against him, because his magical power is unrivaled to this day. In a flashback, we see Wahlberg talking to Adam, who tells him about the mage's responsibility to protect the weak. But Wahlberg thinks the idea is questionable, because people should strive to become stronger and protect themselves. Adam admits that he has a point, but he tells Wahlberg not to question his ideals, reminding him that he's just a student. But Adam explains that he was just joking, telling Wahlberg that he's still young and he'll figure it out when he grows older, because he has immense potential. Back in the present, Wahlberg manages to stop the spell, surprising everyone, as he mentions that Adam is the greatest man he has ever known. But he knows that the times have changed, so the past is no longer important, saying he's willing to fight Adam to defend the academy. He claims that despite his old age, he's still in his prime, and Necros knows that he's currently the strongest mage alive, but he thinks Adam is better than Wahlberg. Adam uses his magic, creating a ball of energy which destroys everything in its path, and Necros explains that Adam's dark magic returns everything to the void, thinking Wahlberg doesn't stand a chance against it. Adam summons a magical snake, and Wahlberg barely manages to avoid it, as Necros notes that he isn't using magic, thinking it's because his spells are useless against dark magic. Necros calls Adam the best toy ever, saying he has a new favorite, and Adam summons more magical snakes, surrounding Wahlberg, but he manages to destroy them. Adam unleashes a dark energy beam, but Wahlberg counters with the nails of Uranus, and it cuts through Adam's magic, slicing through Necros, who realizes that he just lost his arm. Wahlberg reveals that his magic controls space, telling Necros that his arm went to a distant spot, but Wahlberg assures him that it won't kill him. He thinks Wahlberg removed the space that the dark magic was occupying, so he thinks about covering a larger area, and Adam uses his magic, attacking Wahlberg from all directions. But he manages to defend himself, causing Necros to become surprised, because he's using the strongest mage in history, but he's still at a disadvantage. He still thinks that dark magic is the strongest, and he uses Adam's ultimate skill, creating an enormous ball of darkness. He launches it at Wahlberg, But he laughs, revealing that he's been relying on his wand, but he's going to start using his magic. The nails of Uranus form a diamond, and he fires a massive beam of light, which is able to overpower Adam's magic. So Necros panics, trying to escape, but he ends up getting hit, causing him to disappear. Wahlberg remembers Adam, saying he will inherit all of his teachings, and Innocent Zero approaches him, ready to take him on. We return to the arena, as Barrett and Lance continue to fight the demons, but there's too many of them, and Caldo thinks they're trying to deplete everyone's magical powers. But Anna tells him to stop complaining, and he realizes that they have no choice but to keep fighting, knowing they need to defeat the demons to protect the students. We see Mash talking to Cell, wondering why he's being targeted. So Cell tells him about the forbidden magic of body construction, revealing that Innocent Zero is planning to achieve immortality by sacrificing 6 blood relatives. He explains that Innocent Zero prepared 6 children as vessels, and Mash is one of them, telling him that he was made to help Innocent Zero achieve his goal. He tells Mash that he should be honored, because he's going to become a part of the strongest being in the world, and he thinks that it's similar to how muscles need protein to improve. But Cell becomes confused, because he can't understand what Mash is saying. Mash thinks the information is too much to handle, thinking he must be dreaming, so he decides to take a nap, and he immediately falls asleep. But Cell wakes him up, and he becomes disappointed, realizing that he isn't dreaming. He asks Cell if he's one of Innocent Zero's children, but he explains that he's just a clone, which was created by Innocent Zero when he gave his blood to a corpse. Cell mentions that he was created to serve his master, and he reveals that he's jealous of Mash, because he's going to be absorbed by Innocent Zero. Cell thinks that Mash doesn't deserve to be a part of the strongest being, seeing him as trash, but he suddenly punches Cell, knocking him down. Mash tells him to bring it on, and he thinks that Mash has incredible power, because he was created by Innocent Zero. So he decides to unleash his full power, summoning Hephaestus, as his wand exudes a powerful aura. Mash wonders what's happening, so he explains that his wand's full power has been unleashed, and he creates a pillar of energy, which grabs everyone's attention. He reveals that Innocent Zero only needs Mash's heart, so he plans to cut Mash's body into pieces, and just save his heart. Cell uses 2 of his blades to attack, and Mash barely manages to avoid them. We see that they're sharp enough to slice through buildings, and Cell explains that his blades can slice through anything, because they're made of diamonds. The blades return, and they pursue Mash, but he easily dodges them, thinking he needs to ignore them to defeat Cell. But as he continues to dodge them, he realizes that Cell has 2 blades on standby, thinking he's planning to use them to defend himself. Mash thinks he's going to be in trouble if Cell uses them, and he wonders if Mash is afraid, saying he will kill everyone if Mash runs away. He activates the ball of spikes, and it suddenly starts growing, as he explains that summoning Hephaestus increased his magical power. He tells Mash that everyone's going to die once the ball hits the arena, telling him to give up. Cell launches his blades at Mash, but he starts running away, and Cell wonders if he's going to abandon his friends. But he suddenly appears behind him, revealing that he ran around the academy to escape the blades. Cell becomes surprised, realizing that Mash is incredibly fast, and he thinks Mash will take him out before his blades arrive, so he decides to harden his skin, making it as tough as diamond. The blades hit Mash, causing him to fall to the ground, and Cell proceeds to stomp on him, but he suddenly realizes that Mash is covered in cream puffs. He mentions that there's a party, and he proceeds to stuff Cell's mouth with cream puffs, so he becomes confused, wondering why Mash is still alive. He's about to suffocate, and we learn that he was just hallucinating, because Mash used his chokehold magic to knock him out. We see that Mash strangled Cell when he saw the blades, and he contracted his biceps to put pressure on the carotid artery, preventing oxygen from entering Cell's brain, and knocking him out in an instant. The ball shatters, saving everyone in the arena, and Mash explains that he cares about the school, so he's willing to fight anyone who threatens to destroy it. We return to Grant and Sean, as they're about to reach the arena, so Grant starts fixing his hair, thinking he needs to look presentable. But Sean wonders why he's doing this, reminding him that they're still flying, so he explains that he needs to take care of his appearance, because he's one of the hottest men in the world. Sean thinks he's being ridiculous, and they're approaching the arena, but Sean suddenly stops, so Grant wonders what's happening. He notes that everything has stopped moving, so he realizes that they have entered an area where a powerful mage has stopped time. He thinks he can still move because he has immense magical power, but Sean isn't as talented, so he decides to leave him, making his way to the arena. He joins Ada and Caldo, saying they did a good job protecting the students, and Caldo explains that the candidates helped them out. Grant asks him about Mash, so he reveals that Mash defeated Cell, and we see him eating a cream puff to replenish his energy. Grant is impressed to see this, but Ada explains that Wahlberg is fighting Innocent Zero, and Caldo wonders where they are, knowing Wahlberg used magic to leave the arena. Mash volunteers to look for him, saying he will use his muscles to find Wahlberg, and he dashes away, but Ada doesn't expect him to succeed. He thinks they will find Innocent Zero if they interrogate Cell, so he prepares to attack him, but a barrier protects him, and he's suddenly transported away. They know that he couldn't have used the spell because he's unconscious, so they realize that someone's protecting him, and they decide to stay in the arena, thinking the students aren't safe yet. Grant wants to fight Innocent Zero, but he thinks about Wahlberg's ideals, knowing protecting the students is the top priority, and he knows that Wahlberg is stronger than him, so he decides to trust Mash, thinking he's strong enough to save Wahlberg. Innocent Zero thinks about Wahlberg's magic, knowing it's one of his strongest spells, so Innocent Zero thinks he hasn't lost his touch. He's determined to win the fight, because he wants to protect the students, and Innocent Zero tries to stop time, but he uses his magic to remove the space around him, causing him to disappear. He appears behind Innocent Zero, trying to end the fight, but he misses, and Innocent Zero uses time magic on Wahlberg's arm, causing it to age rapidly. He tells Wahlberg that his legs are next, and he realizes that Innocent Zero is far stronger than he used to be, calling him a monster. Wahlberg thinks about cutting the space around him, and he casts a spell, using the nails of Uranus to cover the entire area, and he does his best to ensure that Innocent Zero won't be able to dodge it. But he still manages to evade it, telling Wahlberg that he doesn't stand a chance. He realizes that Innocent Zero stopped time before the spell hit him, and he uses his time magic once again, causing Wahlberg's arm to turn to dust. Innocent Zero tells him that resistance is futile, because there's a massive power gap between them, saying he was able to become stronger by focusing on himself, while Wahlberg was obsessed with protecting others. In a flashback, we learn that Wahlberg was lonely as a child, because he always got sick, and his grades were average. He thinks there's nothing special about him, so he lacks confidence, and he decides not to go to school, because he doesn't want to interact with the outside world, thinking nobody's going to like him. But Adam visits him, telling him random facts, and advising him to go to school. Wahlberg rejects him, but he continues to do this for several days, so Wahlberg becomes upset, trying to get him to leave, but he still refuses to give up. After some time, Wahlberg becomes curious, wondering why Adam is doing this. So he explains that he can't leave Wahlberg alone, causing him to become happy because he realizes that someone cares about him, and he decides to start going to school. Back in the present, Wahlberg tells Innocent Zero that he knows what it's like to be selfish, but he explains that he was saved by the kindness of others, so he refuses to abandon his students. He unleashes his full power, as he explains that he won't change his ideals even if he dies, and he uses his ultimate skill. Uranus transforms into an enormous being, as Innocent Zero notes that Wahlberg's magic hasn't declined with age. Wahlberg explains that Uranus has reached the pinnacle of its power, and Innocent Zero tries to use his spell, but he realizes that he can't, as Wahlberg explains that his magic won't work within the domain. He prepares to destroy everything around him, and Uranus charges up, as he tells Innocent Zero that their rivalry is about to come to an end. But time suddenly stops, as Innocent Zero reveals that Wahlberg's domain can't stop his control of time, thinking Wahlberg is no match for him. He launches an attack, and Wahlberg gets stabbed, causing him to cough up blood, as Innocent Zero explains that he has suffered a fatal injury, thinking he won't survive. But as time resumes, Innocent Zero realizes that Uranus is still charging up. Wahlberg explains that his skill unleashes the true power of the wand, and he has stored all of his magical power into it, so the spell won't stop even if he dies, telling Innocent Zero that it's all over for him, because he's willing to risk everything to save his students, because he wants to see them achieve their dreams. We learn that Wahlberg has been watching Mash and his friends, and he knows that their goals are selfless, thinking the world will be a better place if they succeed. He wants to see a world filled with kindness, saying power isn't everything, as he mentions that people are suffering because of their weakness, thinking they don't deserve this. So he wants to make the ultimate sacrifice, to serve as an example for others, thinking this is necessary to achieve his goal. Uranus unleashes its full power, causing a powerful explosion, which creates a massive ball of light. Everyone sees this, thinking it's a beautiful scene, and the divine visionaries recognize it as spatial magic, knowing Wahlberg sacrificed his life to defeat Innocent Zero. But it suddenly starts shrinking, causing them to worry, because it's supposed to continue expanding, so they realize that something's wrong. It completely disappears, and Wahlberg is surprised to see Innocent Zero, realizing that he reversed time to counter the spell. He summons dark arrows, using them to attack Wahlberg, who tries to defend himself, but he ends up getting stabbed, so he drops his wand, and he's about to fall. But Innocent Zero catches him, telling him that he lost, because he's been living his life for others, saying he should have focused on getting stronger instead. Innocent Zero is about to deal the finishing blow, and Wahlberg thinks it's all over for him, thinking he has failed Adam, so he starts crying. But Mash suddenly arrives to save him, and he reminds Wahlberg about their first encounter, where Wahlberg asked him what he would do if he fought against an overpowered opponent. He tells Wahlberg that he would still fight regardless, and he challenges Innocent Zero to a fight. Wahlberg thinks he's cool, but he sees Mash's legs, thinking it's ruining the moment. Back in the arena, everyone wonders why Wahlberg's spell disappeared, and Caldo realizes that Innocent Zero was able to rewind time. So Grants decides to look for Wahlberg, telling Caldo to take charge. But he knows that Innocent Zero is stronger than him, so he thinks he's going to have a hard time. We return to Mash, as Wahlberg tells him to retreat, because he doesn't stand a chance against Innocent Zero. But he explains that he was raised to be kind to the elderly, and Wahlberg can't believe that Mash is thinking about his safety. Innocent Zero tells Mash to join him, but he refuses, so Innocent Zero decides to take him by force. He casts a spell, which surrounds Mash and Wahlberg with a dark energy, as he reveals that he has been experimenting on his body, and this allows him to acquire the ability to steal magic. He reveals that he has obtained Adam's dark magic, and he's now taking Wahlberg's powers. Mash saves Wahlberg, but Innocent Zero says it's too late, because he has already stolen Wahlberg's magic. He starts controlling Uranus, and he uses Wahlberg's spell, creating a beam of light, which erases everything in its path. Wahlberg is surprised to see this, and Innocent Zero thinks he has gained the power to rule the world, threatening to destroy Mash. But he suddenly charges in, delivering a devastating combo, but Innocent Zero completely endures it, and he stops Mash, saying his attacks are working. Innocent Zero tries to restrain him, but he's able to escape, and Innocent Zero explains that Mash is out of his league, telling him to give up. But he suddenly feels strange, and he starts to lose control, as Wahlberg explains that his body can't handle his magical power, so it's starting to act up. Wahlberg recalls their conversation before they started fighting, and he realizes that Innocent Zero wants to absorb Mash, because he's trying to obtain the perfect body. He believes Mash was created to be absorbed by him, but Wahlberg disagrees, saying Mash has the right to decide how he wants to live his life. But Innocent Zero finds this ridiculous, explaining that Mash has no right to live, because he can't even use magic. Innocent Zero explains that Adam tried to make the world a better place, but despite his influence, he couldn't get the mages to accept non-magic users, so Innocent Zero thinks Mash will always be an outcast. He unleashes a beam of light, and Wahlberg realizes he can't dodge it, but Mash saves him, and he's surprised by Mash's speed. But he notes that Innocent Zero is far stronger than them, thinking they don't stand a chance, but Mash reminds him that magic is everything, and the strongest magic user is an evil person. So he believes the world will accept him after he defeats Innocent Zero, but he thinks Mash is being ignorant, calling himself the strongest being in the world. But he opens a portal, as he explains that he needs to adapt to his body, so he decides to retreat. But before he leaves, he casts a spell, which causes a beam of dark energy to descend from the sky, but it breaks into tiny particles before reaching the arena. The demons disappear, so everyone wonders what's happening, thinking Innocent Zero must have a plan. They sense a powerful presence, as the demons' energies gather outside, causing an enormous monster to appear. Mash and Wahlberg see it from a distance, and Innocent Zero tells Mash to prove his strength by defeating it, thinking he doesn't stand a chance. Innocent Zero escapes, and Wahlberg realizes that the monster has overwhelming power, thinking it can destroy the academy in an instant. But he runs out of magical power, and he's about to fall to his death, but Grants arrives to save him, realizing that he's severely injured. He explains that he would have died if Mash hadn't intervened, and Grants is surprised to hear this, thinking Mash is amazing. Time resumes in the arena, and everyone's confused, because they have no idea what's happening. But they see the monster approaching, so they panic, realizing that their lives are in danger. It destroys the wall, launching debris towards the arena, and everyone thinks they're going to die, but Lance imagines his sister asking for help, so he uses his gravity spell to stop it. He mentions that his sister gives him strength, but Barrett hears this, realizing he's a weirdo, and Makarin uses his spell to destroy the debris. Everyone runs for their lives, as the monster approaches the arena, and Barrett tries attacking it with his spell, but a barrier protects it, so he becomes confused, wondering why his magic didn't work. So Caldo explains that it's protected by a magic nullifying barrier, thinking an enemy mage created it. He reveals that Ada is looking for the mage, and they decide to help him, knowing they don't stand a chance as long as the barrier is active. Everyone tries to escape, but they realize that they're trapped inside the arena, because the barrier is preventing them from leaving. Lance asks Makarin if he isn't going to run, but he wants to stay and fight, and Lance joins him, saying they must protect the other students. The monster reaches the arena, and it stares at everyone, so they fall into despair, thinking they're doomed. It's about to finish them off, but it suddenly stops, and they see the monster struggling, realizing that it's being pulled back. They wonder what's happening, knowing it can't be magic, because the barrier is still protecting it. So they decide to take a closer look, and they can't believe their eyes, as they see Mash grabbing onto its chain, trying to stop it from killing everyone. The monster tries to resist, and it becomes a contest of strength, as everyone realizes that Mash is playing tug-of-war with it. They start talking about Mash, knowing he can't use magic, so they think he doesn't deserve to be in the academy, but they see Mash struggling, realizing that he's putting everything on the line to protect them. So they start cheering for him, knowing he's their only hope, and Finn is happy to see this, because he never thought Mash would be accepted by everyone, realizing that he's changing the rules of the world. He continues to struggle against the monster, but he hears everyone cheering for him, and this gives him the strength to overpower it, launching it to the air. Everyone becomes stunned, as he hurls it with all his might, sending it crashing against the mountains, and causing a massive explosion. Everyone celebrates, knowing Mash saved their lives, and Finn approaches him, saying he's glad that Mash was able to defeat it. Lemon tells him he's amazing, and she waits for him to kiss her, but he eats a cream puff instead, so she becomes upset, wondering why he isn't making a move. After some time, Wahlberg wakes up in the infirmary, where Grants tells him that Mash saved the day, and he's happy to hear this, thinking Mash embodies Adam's ideals. Caldo and Barrett find the mage who created the barrier, planning to arrest him, but Ada uses his spell, and crushes him instead. Ada knows that Caldo has sided with Mash, thinking he has fallen, and Ada mentions that he will never accept Mash. But Caldo reveals that he hasn't fully accepted Mash either, but he recognizes Mash's strength, telling Ada that he might have to accept it in the future. Days later, the public learns about Innocent Zero's attack, but the authorities change the story to stem the chaos, telling everyone that the Divine Visionaries were able to drive him off. But they remain skeptical, and the Bureau of Magic is hiding the truth. Mash is bothered by what's happening, so he decides to go to the beach with his friends. We learn that this is their first time visiting a beach, so they decide to have fun, but Finn wonders if they should be doing this, knowing the realm is in chaos. But Barrett doesn't care, saying it's time to play, and he shows everyone a watermelon creature, but it suddenly attacks Mash, trying to suck his blood out. Barrett reveals that the creature is known to kill people, so Finn asks him why he brought it to the beach, but he explains that it's okay, reminding Finn that they're always fighting for survival. Mash destroys the creature, saying it's time to eat it, and it thanks him for putting it out of its misery, but Finn thinks it looks disgusting. Mash and Barrett start playing, as their friends talk about Mash, thinking things won't end well for him, because the people are going to blame him for the incident. Lemon thinks this is unfair, because he didn't do anything wrong, and Wahlberg suddenly appears, saying Mash's greatest trial is about to happen. They can't believe he's chilling at the beach, asking him what he's doing there, so he tells them that summer only comes once a year, and he wants to enjoy the heat. He tells them that Mash will never find peace, because Innocent Zero wants to absorb him, explaining that Innocent Zero can control space and time, and he even has access to forbidden magic. So Wahlberg believes he's the most powerful mage in history, and he adds that Innocent Zero has 5 servants, who are gifted with immense magical power. He knows that the Academy is no match for Innocent Zero's forces, thinking they don't stand a chance, but he believes Mash can lead them to victory. He mentions that Mash's powers are different, because he's gifted with incredible strength, thinking this is the key to defeating the most powerful mages. But Lemon is worried about him, thinking he could end up dying, but he tells her he's going to be fine, because nobody can defeat his muscles. Finn notes that he isn't making sense, but Wahlberg admires his fighting spirit, because he never backs down, and he's willing to do everything to protect the weak. Wahlberg hopes he can change the world, saying he's counting on him, and Mash promises to defeat their enemies, saying he will graduate with his friends. Everyone's happy to hear this, but Barrett reminds him that the exams are coming up, and he's about to get expelled because of his poor academic performance, so he becomes nervous. Meanwhile, Brad tells Bernadette about the exam, wondering if Mash is going to make it. But Bernadette thinks he'll be fine, because he's a good person, but Brad tells him that kindness has nothing to do with exams. Lemon reveals that they gave Mash a mock exam, but we see that his results are terrible, and Lance mentions that he was never the brightest student, but he's able to pass because of his practical exams. He hates studying, saying he wants to go home, but Barrett promises to support him, and Mash wonders if he's doing well academically. So he reveals that he enjoys studying, thinking it's going to help him become successful in the future, and Mash can't believe this, realizing that he's the dumbest person in the group. Lance teaches him about magical math, telling him to memorize the formulas, and everyone lectures him about the other subjects. But he can't handle the information, so his brain explodes, and he thinks he won't be able to pass the exam, but his friends warn him that he'll get expelled if he fails. So he starts studying, realizing that his friends are watching him, but he suddenly runs away and escapes through the window. Finn thinks they should chase him, but Lance advises against it, saying there's no point teaching someone who isn't willing to learn. Finn decides to look for Mash anyway, and he starts searching around the academy, but he can't find Mash. As he walks around the woods, he realizes that Mash has buried himself in the ground, and he explains that he wants to return to the earth because he has given up on studying. But Finn reminds him that he never backs down from a fight, and he promised to graduate with his friends, so he needs to focus on his studies. He thanks Finn for encouraging him, realizing he's being pathetic, and he emerges from the ground, saying he's going to do his best. Mash returns to his friends, begging them to teach him again, so they help him out, and he tries to learn as much as he can. It's time for the exam, and Mash sees the test paper, but he struggles to answer the questions, so he starts crying. After the exam, we see that Mash is depressed, thinking he's going to fail, so his friends try to cheer him up. The teacher calls his name, so he walks forward, and she tells him he's a terrible student, but she gives him his exam result, telling him he has improved. He realizes that he barely passed, and his friends are happy to see this, but he says it's too easy, so they beat him up, telling him not to get cocky. At that moment, Tom tells them to bamboo it, but Finn has no idea what he means, so Lance explains that everyone knows about Mash, because he was mentioned in the newspaper. Tom tells them to bamboo it again, and Barrett realizes that the civilians are rushing to the campus because they want to get rid of Mash. They gather outside the academy, telling the authorities to hand over Mash because he doesn't deserve to be there, calling him an abomination. But Lemon confronts them, and she explains that it doesn't matter if Mash can't use magic because he's a great person. But they don't accept her explanation, asking her who she is, so she tells them she's his wife, but they don't believe her, knowing she's too young to get married. So she explains that she's his soulmate, saying she's destined to marry him, and they become upset, thinking she's messing with them. Barrett appears, introducing himself as Mash's agent, and he explains that Mash has prepared a statement for them. He starts reading it, but he suddenly insults them, and they become angry, realizing he isn't taking them seriously. Barrett and Lemon defend Mash, knowing he did nothing wrong, but a man calls them criminals because they're defending a non-magic user, and he throws a stone, which ends up hitting Lemon. So Mash thinks about facing the crowd, but Lance stops him, telling him he needs to endure it because he's only going to make the situation worse. Lemon tells them she's willing to take the punishment with Mash, saying he's a good person, but the man laughs, telling her she's being too emotional. We learn that he wants to capture Mash because he wants to be famous, so he calls her a sinner, and everyone starts throwing stones. But Mash saves her, catching the stones before they hit her, and the man thinks he's an easy target because he can't use magic. The man uses a spell, which traps Mash in a steel chamber, and he explains that it's indestructible, thinking Mash won't be able to escape. But he destroys it with his bare hands, and the man can't believe it because he's been using the chamber to trap giant monsters. Mash manages to break free, and he lifts the chamber, launching it to the air, and it ends up falling on the man and trapping him inside. Mash knows that the people don't like him, but he promises to become the strongest in the realm and prove that it's okay to be a non-magic user. Wahlberg suddenly arrives, and he explains that Mash's fate will be determined by the Divine Visionary Candidate exam, telling everyone to be patient until the result comes out. He tells Mash that he's lucky to have true friends who are willing to speak on his behalf. But Wahlberg explains that they will get into trouble if he fails to become a Divine Visionary, so he needs to pass the exam. We learn that the exam is about to reach its final stage, and Mash is determined to succeed, saying he will defeat anyone who gets in his way. But that's where this series ends for now. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.